Wait. Hello. Are my captions working? The captions are working. Cool. Happy Thursday. I was second guessing my schedule once again. I was like, wait, is today the decade study or is tomorrow? Tomorrow is a watch along. Today is the decade study. And Saturday, I'm gonna learn some stuff. I'm gonna learn how to draw people. But hello, how you guys doing? It's weather's not too bad today here in sunny California. I know the same can't be said elsewhere, but it's not too bad today. How you guys doing? I hope you're ready for some real old-timey stuff. Like real old-timey, like over 100 years ago old-timey. But hello. Let me just fix my mic, mix my fike. Let me just fix my mic, and then I'll see who we got here, and then we'll go to get started. Wait, I need to find a playlist of old-timey music too, but give me a second. I had to fix it because I was slouching, you see, and now I'm not slouching. But also I should probably put my toesies on the floor instead of having them up on the chair. But alright, let's see who we got here today. Let me scroll up. We got Saribot, a rock. And we got Folkensation. You guys got your stickers. And Peck School, hello. And then same with Ghosty and Gojikins, hello. Welcome, you guys. You guys are exploding. Teacher, we had pizza today and it was good. I hope you had delicious food too. Ooh. What did I have today? I had toast. I forgot to like really eat like a full meal. Oh no, you know what? I had leftovers. I had leftover fried rice today with sriracha, which was fun because if you played any one of the different dailies today on New York Times, then it's relevant. It's relevant. Hello, Mauser. Hello, Spike my mic. Hello. But yeah, I had some leftover rice, so I think I didn't eat that much in terms of lunch because I had a big breakfast. So there's that, but you know what? I should get some kind of dinner after this. The sriracha, yeah. Yummy sriracha. But now I regret eating all of the fried rice because now there's nothing. now I'm hungry. But let's get to class, shall we? I did get my tracking going. Let's get the music going. Hello. The old-timey ragtime music. I don't know why that kind of got me. I wish I should have like put some kind of filter over the stream, right, to make it look all grainy and black and white and stuff. Wait, maybe I could do it live. Well, first of all, let me do my welcome. Hello, everyone. Hello, it's me, Babinka Bear, your local sun bear, art history teacher. My legs. Art history teacher and educational streamer. And today we're learning about. Hold on. We're learning about the 1900s, the aughts, the actual aughts. Don't use the aughts to refer to the 2000s. No one does that. And if they do, they're wrong. No, why do you insist on doing the cheese after you've shrunken me? I'm not getting any of that cheese. It's all going to the magnifying glass. It's all going to the magnifying glass. No. I wanted that cheese. You can do it to your model. Pretty sure VtubeStudio has that effect. Ah, dang, I probably should have researched that ahead of time. I tried to get it to you when you were embiggened. Ah, it's okay. It's okay. The best laid plans and all that. The bombs! Hello. Why are you laughing at me? With the ragtime music too? With the ragtime music? This is so chaotic, especially with the ragtime music. Oh no, the magnifying glass. It's still there. I'm sure it'll go away. I'm sure. But hello, Matthew. Hello. There we go. We're good now. We're good. We're so Art Deco. But wait. Nice note. Don't be passing notes in class. Also, I realized I don't think I have any toggles or redeems that are related to the 1900s because technically Art Deco wouldn't come along until much later, until like I want to say the 20s and 30s. This time Goji and I rubbed our two brain cells today together. I'm just imagining you guys like rubbing your heads of like we gotta get this collective brain cell going. Bibbing comes together strong. Yeah, I'm realizing I don't have like a model that matches the 1900s. I don't have a like a toggle or like a classroom set that matches the 2000s. I still need to get like a cave version going from when we talk about real old stuff, you know? But maybe I can make something happen right now off the noggin. Give me a second. I feel like it's just color. I need a color source. Give me a second. Everything's gray. Give me a second. We'll make it sepia. We'll see if we can make this sepia. Hold on. Multiply. There we go. We have some kind of filter. We have some kind of filter going. You think there's some kind of like grainy filter that I can get off of the interwebs? Okay, grainy film filter. I'm just gonna put this into DuckDuckGo, and then maybe it'll help me out, you know? Okay, I found something. I'm just gonna copy it and paste it. Wait, actually maybe that's not a good idea. maybe I should save it. Save it first. Paste it in. And then let's play around with some options here. There we go. We got that. Let me make this blending mode multiply. There we go. There we go. Now we're really in the 1900s, right? The only thing is I need some kind of filter. I don't have any voice filters to make myself sound really like tinny, you know? Wait, I have a cardboard cup. It's from leftover like coffee from this morning. What if I just talk into it? Oh my gosh! Wait, can you guys hear my voice? Does it sound like tinny? Does it sound like the 1900s? Is my voice even going through? We're in the old times now. It's 1902. Years before Zeppelins and mustard gas. Perfect for rainbow stick. It sounds cuppy. Well, the thing is, I don't want to keep holding this cup up to my mouth, because look, it's messing up my tracking. It's messing up my tracking. Okay, I'm gonna put it down. But I do have this coffee cup here. At any point I could do that. The only thing is, like, there wasn't even film in the 1900s. The pop culture part, you know what, I'm gonna... Wait, can we put this away? There we go. Let me scroll up, let me catch up on some messages, and then we'll keep going, but that's the best I could do for 1900s, because, like, there wasn't even film. But, no, actually there was. I'm a liar. I'm a McLiar. There was film by this point. But let me catch up on chat. Your old-timey cartoon would work, wouldn't it? No, so, like, that's actually the 1930s. That old-timey cartoon is the 1930s. I know, right? Real old stuff like my era. Get off my lawn. Harpsichord enjoyer, hello, you got your sticker. Sepia, are we in Mexico? You know what's funny is Beans and I are rewatching Breaking Bad, and it's just so funny that every time there's a scene in Mexico, it's just like so sepia. Like every time. It could be like a 12-second scene of just like a conversation, but everything becomes like so sepia. We're in the Mojave. Perfect for Bane posing. No one knew. Wait. No one knew who I was until I put on the mask. They expect one of us in the wreckage, brother. Thanks for the big emote, Matthew. Sounds cuppy. Yo, Mauser, thank you for the 5-stream streak. I expect to see Groucho marks on the screen at some point. Oh, I need a mustache. I need it in quick. Silent film was a thing. Yeah, it was. You're right. Silent film was a thing. And in fact, in the pop culture era, pop culture section, I do talk about it. I can't believe I forgot that. That's the sanity clause. You can't fool me. I don't believe in the sanity clause. I'm glad you took it away, Possum. Eyesight is bad enough. Now this is pod racing. Thanks for the big emo, Matthew. And Monday, hello. Thank you for the raid. Hello, hello. I was lurking for just a smidge earlier today. How was Hollow Knight? How was it? Hello, hello. Welcome. Let's Scamper Campers Monday raid. Hello Tuesday. Hello. Uncommon Wolf. Oh, uncommon? Is it Uncommon Wolf? Nice, nice. Welcome, welcome. Ooh, Matthew, you earned a 10k bits back. What is that? What does that mean? Did you donate bits just now? Thank you if you did. And no worries if not. Isaac the Icicle, hello. Let's Scamper Campers. Hello, Sylphrin. Welcome, welcome. And then hello, Monday. How was your stream? How'd it go? Hello. For those who don't know me, my name is Babinka Bear. I'm your local Sun Bear art history teacher and educational streamer. And today we're learning about the 1900s in my attempt to get good at Time Guesser. You see, I'm going decade by decade, and you think that because we're on the 1900s, it means that I've just started? No, I actually started on the 1920s. Because I was like, oh, let's start 100 years ago. Not realizing that Time Guesser goes all the way to the 1900s. So we've actually been doing this series since the beginning of this year. So we've gone through the 1920s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000s, 2010s, and we didn't do the 2020s yet. But we decided to rewind all the way back to the 1900s to talk about the 1900s. In 2 weeks, we'll do the 1910s, and 2 weeks after that, we'll finally get to the 2020s, or at the very least, what we've experienced so far with it. So yeah. And then, hello, Equal Art. Hello, hello. I saw there was learning and was like, oh my gosh, nice. Thank you. It was weirdly chill. Nice. How much is 10,000 bits? I'm actually not sure. You got it? Nice. Over the years. Through the years. We got very stuck and we explored. I think that's the cool part about Metroidvanias, right? I mean, like, Hollow Knight, I haven't played it myself, but it's just so much of a popular game that, you know, through osmosis and through watching a whole bunch of, like, game dev videos, the assumption, right, is that it's a Metroidvania, right? But I hear exploration's kind of like a big part of that, right? So I'm glad you guys got some exploring done. Is bibingka Tagalog Bisaya? So, yes, the word bibingka refers to a Filipino treat. Bibingka is a rice cake that is commonly enjoyed during Christmas time, but you could also enjoy it whenever you want. Me, myself, I am Filipino, and you actually kind of hit the nail on the head there, because my mom is Bisaya, and my dad is from Quezon City, so I'm partially Tagalog, partially Bisaya, but also American. Filipino-American. So, to answer your question, yes. yes, Uncommon Wolf, you got it. We got free Sniffa stickers. Yeah, that's right. So we do have a 1-point redeem for any new students in the class today. Well, actually for everybody, but it's a 1-point redeem. It's our little check-in system, and when you cash it in, there's a cool little Filipino treat-inspired sticker that shows up on the screen. So I see Monday you got your sticker. It's a fun game, but a lot to learn at first. Okay. It's a Metroidvania for sure. I'm something of a Metroidvania enjoyer. Nice! I've been thinking about getting into it. I don't know if I've ever actually played a Metroidvania before. Never played Metroid, never played Castlevania, but I've been interested because of all the cool new games that have been coming out. And I do like the idea of just, like, exploration, right, in a video game. Lately, though, I've been really into Bullet Heavens. And I just say that because I've been playing a lot of, Everything is Crab? Right? So I've been enjoying that lately. Also, let me know if the music is too loud or not, if you can hear me over the ragtime. Do let me know. But also, Monday, thanks again for the raid. If you do have to raid and run, or do some post-stream care, no worries at all. But if you want to hang around while we talk about the 1900s, we will do that. Music's a smidge loud, but so nice. I'll put it down a teensy bit then. Put it down a little bit. There you go. Uncommon Wolf said, my friend married a Filipino about a year ago now, so I've had the pleasure of learning about the Philippines and have learned a little bit of Cebuano. Nice! I don't know too much Cebuano other than, like, maayong buntag, or, like, just greetings, and, I guess, irog, which means dog. But yeah, maayong buntag, maayong gabi, maayong, I think that might be it. I think that might be all I know, unfortunately. But yeah, my mom fluently speaks Bisaya, but I took a class. Oh, I think it was like probably like 5 years ago now, and I don't recall too much. I know a lot more Tagalog though. I know a lot more Tagalog because that one I took more classes in. My parents spoke Tagalog to each other, so I know a lot more of that. But Cebuano, not so much. But yeah, like magandang gabingka sa inyong lahat. Ako si Babinka. I actually don't normally play Metroidvania, but there's something about Hollow Knight, and especially its randomizers. Yeah, the art style looks really cute. Oh, Hollow Cure. I have played a little bit of Hollow Cure. I did play Vampire Survivors. I think those might be the only ones. But Everything is Crab is a lot of fun. Hollow Cure is so much fun. Nice, nice. I'm so curious how the next update will be. Oh, salamat. Yeah, salamat is Tagalog. Well, I don't know if they probably also have it in Bisaya, but salamat. Maraming salamat. My Gundam's a baka. KU seems pretty pumped if his posts on Twitter are any indication. Nice, so that means the next update will be a fun one. One of my new favorites now is ube rice. Ooh, I don't know if I've ever had ube rice. I've had ube, definitely have rice with every single meal I have, but never had them combined together before. Like a dessert rice, kind of like a, I guess, champurrado, which would be like chocolate rice, but with ube. It's very cute. I will say early Hollow Knight can feel scary, but then it's like a walk in a slightly scary park. Nice. Hollow Knight's cuteness wears off once you start reading the story. Oh, that's my jam though. I'm definitely a fan of the creepy cute. In fact, you guys know what I was doing all day? So I actually finished my research for today's stream pretty early, and I didn't quite feel like moving anything else on my to-do list to today. So I ended up, I saw, have you guys heard of Alien Stage and or Zombie Stage? Basically, in so many words, I wanted to say that I watched the entirety of Alien Stage today. Because I saw the thumbnail for Zombie Stage. And I was like, oh, this is that one series, right? With like the singers and then stuff happens to them and blah, blah, blah. So I was like, before I watch Zombie Stage, I'll watch Alien Stage. So I basically binged all of that. And if you guys don't know what that is, Alien Stage is basically a series of different music videos by someone named Vivinos. And it's like fully animated music videos, and it revolves around this storyline of basically aliens have invaded the earth, and they essentially use humans as like enslaved peoples, but then they force them to like sing in these like twisted versions of like The Voice, where like two singers will compete against each other, and whoever loses essentially dies. So like that's the setup of Alien Stage. I'm not going to spoil any more than that, but there's now a follow-up series called Zombie Stage, and it's definitely the embodiment of like creepy cute. Like, and I kind of like that. It's a dessert. Oh, dessert rice, like rice pudding. I love rice pudding. Nice. Congrats on finishing up early. Yeah. I've been pretty you know, like I've been pretty good on doing things on my to-do list lately. So, and researching just in general is pretty fun. Story less creepy and more grimdark. There are no real happy endings. Ah, we did just talk about grimdark a couple weeks ago with or actually I think it was last week. We did just talk about grimdark with Matthew's research topic last week. So that's also up my alley. I'm not squeamish about any of that, so good to know. Sounds like a very solid incentive to develop a poor singing voice. I mean, yeah, like if it's like either be enslaved or die, then those are the options, right? I need to make the pancit my friend gave me. Ah, pancit is so good. There's so many different kinds though. There's the one with like the angel hair noodles. That's my favorite. Which I believe is pancit bihon, but there's also pancit canton. There's so many different kinds, like pancit habhab is another one, but I just love pancit so much. It's basically stir-fried noodles for those who don't know. But yeah, so let's get into the swing of things before I talk too much about like Alien Stage or Zombie Stage. Ooh, have you had it? Y'all should definitely try pancit if you can. If you can. If you have like access to Filipino restaurants or a Filipino friend that's willing to cook for you, definitely check it out. So we're going to talk about the 1900s today, but we are going to do what I call my dailies, which is basically just like I like to play some daily games. I saw that there was, I didn't actually watch the video, but apparently there's like a term for it now of just like, oh no, I forgot what it was called, but like they refer to it as like education slop or some kind of like, you know, puzzle slop, I think was the term. I saw a video refer to it as puzzle slop. But you know your like New York Times games like Wordle, GeoGuessr. We've been playing some of that for those who don't know. In my Discord, we have a whole channel that's dedicated to just like daily games. Yeah, edu slop. Is that what my content would be considered? Anyway. So yeah, we play some daily puzzles. Wordle, strands, connections on New York Times. But we also have been playing a couple of art history related ones since I'm all into art history. I want to consider myself edutainment, right? But I feel like the young ones, the Gen Alphas and whatnot, they might start referring to my stuff as edu slop. Not the slop. But we have 3 dailies that we're going to be doing today. Right here on the screen is Daily Hue, which is basically here. Unfortunately, I can't enlarge this picture. I really want to, but I unfortunately can't. Maybe... nope. I was like, maybe I could show this to you in a different tab, but no, it's not letting me. It's not letting me. But basically, you have a cool piece of art here, but part of it has been altered color-wise. So you have to figure out what the original color was. So that's one of the games. Another one that we'll be playing is Anthropium. This one's right up my alley. Basically, they give you pictures of 10 artifacts from the Met, and you have to figure out where they're from and when. And then we're going to do Time Guesser, but actually at the end of the stream, because the whole point of doing these decade studies, as I'm calling it, is because we want to get good at Time Guesser. And the earliest photos that we have on Time Guesser are from the 1900s. So, yeah. We're actually going to do this at the end of stream, but right now we're going to do Daily Hue and Anthropium. So before we get into that, hello, May Shark. Hello, hello. You got your sticker. Early in the year, I got to go to a Filipino festival in Boston, which was really fun. Nice, nice. Good to know. Good to know. But all right. You know what? I'm going to lower the ragtime a little bit more. Because it was blaring in my ear. But let's get into Daily Hue. So this piece of art is called The Artist Looks at Nature by Charles Schiller, or Schiller. And this is from 1943. So let's try to guess the original color here. And then, yo, Idol, hello. Thank you for the lurk, and thanks for getting your sticker. So The Artist Looks at Nature. This could either be a big ocean, but it's looking more like hills, right? So maybe this is green? I want to say that this is probably like green hills. The question is it a green that's closer to yellow, like this? Or is it a green that's closer to blue? I kind of want to guess a green that's closer to yellow, right? Because it also could be grain, or it could be dry grass, right? We're playing around with the hue, but let's also play around with the saturation, aka whether it's closer to black and white or closer to like a really vibrant color. So basically, this is what happens when you play around with the saturation slider. On the left side, it's more black and white. If you slide it over to the right, it's way more vibrant. That's what saturation is, basically how much color the color has, you know? So, I want to kind of soften it. I feel like it's close to the center, but let's soften it, desaturate it a little. And then lightness is whether it's going to be dark or light. Kingdom Hearts is light! The player looks at the artist, looks at nature! Exactly. So, I kind of also want to say that this is near the middle. But let's submit a guess. We get 5 tries. We get 5 guesses. So right now our score is 83, and we have a little bit of a hint here. The hue looks like I'm pretty close to the actual number. When it's yellow, it means you're pretty close to the intended number. When it's orange, you're still like quite a ways away, and if it's red, you're on the complete opposite. Like you're cold, basically. Like like if we're going off of a warm and cold scale, you're freezing cold. But here it looks like hue is pretty close to the original color. Hello, Honeybee. Hello. This looks unique. Yeah, I love playing these kinds of games. These are pretty fun. They're nice little brain teasers. So I don't think we have to change the hue too much. I'm just gonna shift it over by a couple points. Saturation, though, it could be closer to the middle here, so it's a little bit more vibrant. And then lightness, so it's looking like it's a little bit darker. Oh, you know what? I do like it darker because then you can. It kind of brings out these like yellow tones in the distance. So let's see if this is any closer. Submit guess. It is! In fact, we got the lightness just right. However, the hue and saturation still need a... Oh my god. look at the little arrows. There are 16 million, over 16 million possible hexadecimal color combinations. Exactly. So that's what makes this game pretty challenging. So let's just bring this over to the middle, and then this one, maybe just by a couple of points. Submit guess. 96! We're so close! We're so close. Okay. Hue, we're off by just like 1 or 2 points, I want to say. We're off by just a little bit. So, Equal Art, thank you for joining the class. Glad to have you here. Oh, we're off by just like a couple of points. What was our hue at? 78? Let's bring it, yeah, to 80. 80 on the dot. And then let's bring saturation to... Okay, let's play around with this. Let's just say here at 53, and then let's see what our guess is. Correct? We are so close. We just need saturation. We got the hue, we got the lightness, we just need saturation. Okay, what looks more correct? Here, where it's like a little desaturated, or here? I know the difference might look kind of negligible, but I feel like it's a little bit closer to saturated. Perfect! We got a perfect! Nice. Let's see, let me see. I wonder how much grace it allows. It depends, because like you could... I've gotten 96s and 98s before, but the goal is to get 100, right? Let's see. And Equal Art, you got your sticker. Mega Bronson, hello. I can't actually hear you, I'm just getting my sticker. Yeah, get those dubs. Get those dubs. He said he can't hear me, but to get those dubs. So lightness was 31, it would have accepted 30 or 32. Ah, okay. Cool. So yeah, it is pretty forgiving then. It is pretty forgiving. Well, let's go ahead and share our score in the Discord. Let's put it in daily games. And then we're gonna go ahead and move on to Anthropium. Mostly because I saw that Peck School had posted a message in the... It's like a spoilered message in the daily games channel in the Discord. And I'm like, I'm just so curious. I'm so curious. So, but before we do that, the cool thing about Daily Hue is once you solve it, it shows you what the color was, and it shows you other artworks that feature that color. So, dark moderate emerald is our color of the day. It's a moderate green mid-tone, carrying the weight of Impressionist gardens, and the cool glass of Venetian masters. We are going to talk about Impressionism today, by the way. We are going to talk about it just a smidge, just a little bit. Because actually, Impressionism was before the 1900s, but it did inspire two styles that we're going to talk about, which is Cubism and Fauvism. And Fauvism is actually one of my favorite art styles. The artist looks at nature. So, this is the work that we were looking at for today. This is American. Or the artist, Charles Sheeler, is American. The artist looks at nature, presents an imagined scene of rolling greenery, massive stone walls, stairs, and pathways. Contrary to its title, the artist, Charles Sheeler, depicted himself seated at an easel, ignoring the brightly lit landscape in front... What does this say? In front of him. Rather, the figure works intently on a monochromatic drawing of an antiquated stove, which is based on one of Sheeler's own photographs. Oh, interesting. So... the artist is looking at the scene, but he's not actually painting it. He's just painting something completely different. That's interesting. I kind of like that. Oh, we're so cubist. We're just so cubist. Oh, I misspoke. It looks like we do have a class that... we do have a classroom transformation that does fit the 1900s. Cool, cool. These are some other works that feature this color, the dark moderate emerald. We have the Hampton Court Green by Pizarro. We have some Japanese art as well, Feeding the Bird. Symphony in White. Wait, I'm not seeing the green here. It says dominant color, but where's the green? Yeah, pretty cool stuff. Pretty cool stuff. Ooh, I like this one, the Magdalene. Bernardino Luini. This is the 1500s. Very nice. This is a nice color, actually. I do like the shade of green that's kind of like in between green and yellow. But alright, let's get to Anthropium. So once again, this is another one of those kind of like puzzle slop games where you're given 10 artifacts featured in the Mets. Wasn't that Japanese picture in Daily Hue a few days ago? Was it? I might have missed it because there was one day where Daily Hue was under not construction. It was like undergoing maintenance, and I actually missed a day. It might have been. It might have been. But yeah, Anthropium, we get 10 artifacts from the Mets collection. We got to figure out where they're from and approximate time period. Give or take 250 years. So, alright, let's take a look at this one. This looks Greek. At first glance, it could also look Egyptian just because of the like side profiles, but the thing with Egyptian art is that it actually features like different perspectives at once, which we are going to go through when we talk about Cubism. But as you can see here, it looks like a very straightforward profile. The clothing even looks, we can actually zoom in. The clothing even looks Greek, right? We have this like drapery over it. The only problem though is that sometimes the Romans would make perfect copies of Greek works. So this could be Greek, this could be Roman, is the thing. You know what? Actually, when you look at this figure, for example, it looks a little bit closer to like medieval times in terms of like proportions and stuff. So why don't we say that this is Roman? It really could be either or is the thing. It could be either or. Teehee, pee pee. Oh, is there? Yeah. It's funny, I was more focused on like, oh, you could see the memories from underneath the sheer fabric. Teehee. So let's say Greece or Rome. Greece or Rome. I don't know. It really could be either. Let's say Rome. Let's say Rome. And then let's put it somewhere here, 500 CE. No, actually a little earlier, because 500 CE is like the transition into medieval times, right? So let's put it just a teensy bit earlier here. Submit guess. Oh, nice. We would have gotten it correct even if we did put Greece. That's the beauty of it. So this is like peak Roman Empire, I guess. Yep, it even says Roman. It even says Roman. So 10 marble fragments of the Great Eleusinian Relief. So this is a little bit earlier. This is 30 BCE to 20 CE. So right at the cusp of like the transition from like BCE to CE. And then let's see what this actually is. So this is from Athens. 10 fragments have been set into a cast of the original relief. Demeter, the goddess of agricultural abundance, stands at the left clad in a peplos and himation, a cloak holding a scepter. At the right is Persephone, her daughter and the wife of Hades, and the god of underworld. She is dressed in a chiton and himation. Each goddess extends her right hand towards a nude youth, but it is no longer possible to determine what they held. The boy is thought to be Triptolemos, who was sent by Demeter to teach men how to cultivate grain. Okay, cool. I'm not going to read the whole thing. But if you want to check it out yourself, definitely play Anthropium on your own. But cool. We got pretty close on that one. Next up. Ooh! This is Nazca. This is super Nazca. It even has like the little cat figure. It's very geometric. I believe this. So this is definitely a kind of Peruvian ceramic. I want to say it's specifically Nazca though, which I keep forgetting whether it's north or south. I want to say it's south. But yeah, I recognize this in a heartbeat because I was studying Peruvian ceramics not too long ago for work. So let's go ahead and go over to Peru. I want to say it is... I don't remember whether it's north or south. It's the thing. It's a cat. Yeah, look. So this is basically like a... the cool thing about Peruvian ceramics, especially from the Nazca region, is that they keep on going back and forth in terms of whether they want to be geometric and abstract or figurative, meaning that they want it to actually resemble something. So if you look at this figure, it kind of resembles a cat, like looking frontally. Like here's the nose, here's the eyes, here's the ears, right? And then here are the teeth, the little fangies, right? So, but if you go a couple years either backwards or forwards in time, this can either become super abstracted to the point where like it doesn't even look like a cat, it just looks like a whole bunch of triangles, or it could look a little bit more figurative, aka it looks more like a cat. It's really cool. Like, it's, I don't know, like Nazca ceramics are just really cool in general. Unfortunately, I don't remember the time period, so we're gonna have to take a guess on like where Nazca specifically is. I want to say, let's say it's like down here somewhere. And I don't know the time period, so we're gonna have to just guess. Let's say it's slightly before 1000 CE. Submit guess. It was north! Dang it! It was North Peru! I messed up, but I got the right region at least. And it was much earlier. It was much earlier. It was actually 300 to 200 BCE. Dang it. Well, at least we knew it was Peru. Actually, arguably this is like central. Arguably this is central Peru. So close, and yet so far. Let's move on. Ooh. Medieval knight? Methinks? Right? Looks like a medieval knight's, you know, helmet. Or like a fencing helmet. Either a knight or like a fencing helmet, right? The thing is, I don't know specifically where this would be from. Like, other than like it being Europe, it could be London, it could be France, it could be Paris, it could be Germany. You know, I don't know. I want to say like West Philadelphia, born and raised on a playground is where I spend most of my days. But let's just say Paris. Medieval times was anywhere from 500 to 1500 CE. So I don't know specifically when this would be, but we could put it smack dab in the middle and kind of hope for the best, right? Submit guess. It was English. It was British. It was English. Oh dear. And it was a little bit more recent, so it was right at the cusp of like Renaissance times. 1500 CE. But it's okay. Sir Giles. Isn't that the guy that No, I think I'm thinking of someone else, right? Bluebeard? Like Giles from I was gonna say Fate, but you know, from like history. Like, anyway, let's move on. You thought France as well. Yeah, I wasn't sure. I never know, like, there's probably like an expert at armor that's like, the specific design is, you know, very unique to Great Britain during this time. I don't know, maybe something with like the design overall. It's more pointier in France, you see. Ooh, okay, this is looking Mesoamerican. Not Mesoamerican. This could actually be Inca. So we might once again go to South America, Peru. Like it looks like something from, you know, Emperor's New Groove, right? The gold, definitely. Oh wait, maybe this is Colombian. Because Colombia also had gold that kind of looked like this with these kinds of motifs. Because if we say Inca would be all the way down here in... No, wait, would it? I actually don't know. I want to say that Inca is like here in Chile, but I know that Cusco was actually like a pretty notable site as well. But this could also be Colombian. Let's say Colombian. Let's say closer to 1500, right? CE. Submit guess. No! It was Peruvian! It's always Peruvian. It's always Peruvian. And it's north. It's north Peru. It keeps mocking me. It keeps mocking me. It's just like every time we see like Arabic writing on paper, and it's like, oh, maybe this will be West Asia. Maybe this will be Baghdad. And it's never Baghdad, except for yesterday. It's always Pakistan, India. Except for yesterday. We got the time pretty close, though. Alright, let's keep on keeping on. Oh, speaking of, look at this. This is probably ink on paper, right? Ink, watercolor, and gold on paper. There's no Arabic writing, though, but I do suspect that this might be one of those Persianate, you know, Mughal, or Mughal? One of those Mughal artworks. So let's say after like post 1500s, let's say, oh, I didn't mean to label Oceania. Yeah, let's say it's like here. Submit guess. Oh, it was south. It was more south, but it was India. The Mughal Empire. Speaking of golden pre-Hispanic cultures, yeah, I keep getting got. It's like, I like to pride myself on being like, yeah, I can identify Mesoamerican and South American art, and then I keep getting got, you know? But cool, this is a portrait of a Sufi, and this is from India. Figure can be identified as a Sufi on account of his long sleeve khirka coat and a turban wrapped in fabric. His curled up posture and lowered gaze suggest that he is in a state of deep introspection. Oh, very nice. Very cool. We got the time period pretty down though. Alright, next round. Ooh, what is this? This looks like a batik? Like some kind of woven, like either skirt or just like something that could be worn lower body, right? I'm thinking Indonesia, but it could just be Southeast Asia in general. It could also be Oceania. It could really be anywhere, but just for the sake of time, I'm gonna guess Indonesia. Let's say Java. Let's say Java. And because this is organic material, we can... It's a safe guess to say 1500. There are a lot of exceptions. Like, for example, a coworker of mine just got back from a trip to China, and she was showing me pictures, and she showed me a piece of... I want to say it was like either paper or bamboo or something, and it was from like 2000 BCE, and I was like, how is paper and bamboo from like 2000 BCE still like, you know, still like not deteriorating? They must have asked the Egyptians, is what I'm guessing. But all right, let's say Indonesia, Java specifically, 16 to 1800 CE. Submit guess. We were so wrong. We were incredibly wrong. Saltillo. A serape. Oh, I should have looked closer at the designs. Right? I kind of just assumed like, oh, this looks like something that you would wear like as a garment, right? Oh, we were so wrong. We got the time period pretty close, but let's learn a little bit more about this. So, the saltillo, serapes of northern Mexico, are among the most flamboyant textiles woven in North America during the 18th and 19th centuries. Long associated with the use by horsemen, which accounts for their considerable size, they took on nationalist overtones after Mexico's independence from Spain in 1821. Horse culture and its accoutrements, from fine horse to fine serape, became distinctively and visibly Mexican, with saltillo serapes being the epitome of male fashion. Saltillos were named for the town in the Mexican state of Coahuila? I'm not sure if I'm saying that right. Coahuila or Huila? Where many were made. Their consistent design with its central diamond motif appears to have been based on numerous sources as yet not fully defined. Ah, okay. Cool. We know for next time. Oh, this looks oceanic. This looks like something you'd see on like Fiji or Tonga or Hawaii or Samoa, right? Just something about kind of like these kind of like repeated lines. There's also a possibility that it could be African, but there's something about this face that kind of reminds me of like if you've seen like a stereotypical like tiki torch, right? The face kind of resembles that. It like, especially this, like, it could either be like a crown, like it's kind of like the crowns that you would see on like old Hawaiian monarchs, or like a mohawk, right? It kind of resembles a mohawk, but the only thing is where, because we could say New Zealand for like the Maori people, we could say like Fiji. Wait, is this Fiji? I actually don't know what island this is. I need to improve on my geography. Let's say New Zealand. Let's say New Zealand. Let's put it a little bit close, like around here. 16 to 18 hundo. Let me guess. We guessed right! We guessed right, we even got the time period. Pretty good. This is a weaving peg. Turu Turu. I like that name. That's a neat name. Turu Turu. It's like Steins Gate. Doo doo doo. So this is made of wood. Kote taura huiri. Oh, it's a proverb. He huiri eti tangata The woven cord is like the cord that connects the people. This weaving peg incorporates a distinctively carved male figure with elaborate designs that accentuate his tattooed skin. Ah, that's what that is. So these patterns are kind of like the tattoos that you would see on their skin. You see something similar to with like some examples of like West African art. I would say like different kinds of African art too, but like some cultures have like a scarification ritual where they like have like, instead of tattoos, it's more like scars, so it has like raised skin, and some of that is portrayed in, say, like African mask, which once again is something we're going to be talking about today when we talk about cubism, because Picasso was very influenced by African mask culture. So it's based off of moko. Carved in the round, intricate low relief carvings cover the entire surface of the figure's body except for the back of his head, which is the seat of an individual's mana, or personal sanctity. Oh, cool, cool, cool. Shiopi, hello. We're doing Anthropium first, and then we're going to talk about the 1900s. So let's keep on keeping on. We're on round 8. Ooh, oh, uh-oh. I'm not sure what I'm looking at. Okay, so it's a glass. There's Arabic here, or what looks like Arabic calligraphy, right? We do get other views of it. Ooh, very intricate. I wonder how they like got the paint on there. Whether it's painted on or if this is some kind of like glass making technique, or maybe like, I guess, would you use glaze with glass, right? I'm not 100% sure. It is. I don't know too much about glass work, if I'm being honest. Like, unfortunately, it's one of those topics in art history that I kind of turn my brain off to, you know? Like, yeah, like every time we see Arabic, it's like, oh, this could be West Asia, but it could also be West India as well. Usually when I want to assume that it's West Asia, I kind of want to assume Baghdad, because that was like where the Golden Age of Islam was happening during the medieval times, but I am not 100% sure. So let's just put it here. Let's just guess. Oh, well, not so wrong. We weren't too far off, but it was more so North Africa and a little bit of the Levant, as they call it. But okay, so this is a glass bowl. A few works of Islamic stained glass are as impressive as this bowl. Reconstructed from many reconstructed. Oh, yeah, look, if you zoom in, you could tell. It was cracked. Some might say it is cracked right now. Because it's very good, you see. It is almost complete with few minor losses. Its decoration can therefore be fully appreciated, unlike that of the majority of similarly ornamented objects, which are fragile, thin-walled, and almost colorless. Ah. Probably Egypt. Wait, is that really what it says? It does say that. It says probably Egypt. Like they're giving us a little shrug. Which I have worked with museums before, and it's just funny when you see something like that on the what we call like the tombstone information, or just like the info where it's like probably this. like I saw tombstone information that said probably modern. And there's just something so funny about that probably. It's just like, it's like the curator just giving you a shrug, you know? It's like, I don't know. It could be. But alright, round 9. Ooh, okay, so this is looking like, oh, Fugubi! Hello! Hello, hello, thank you for the raid. How you doing? Thank you for the raid. How was Here Comes Nico? That sounds like a fun game name. Hello, hello! Thank you for the raid. For those who don't know me, my name is Babinka Bear. I'm your local Sun Bear art history teacher and educational streamer. And today we are gonna study up on the 1900s, but before we do that, we're playing a game called Anthropium, where I'm given 10 artifacts and have to guess where they're from and what time period. So, yeah. But Fugubi, if you have to do any post-stream care, no worries at all. But if you want to stick around, we're just doing the usual. You know, we're doing the usual. But Shenny XD, hello! Welcome to the class. Raid! It was super cozy and fun. Nice! Nice, I'm glad. Here Comes Nico sounds like a fun, you know, game name. But yeah, thank you again. So yeah, this artwork over here, we're on round 9 of 10 so far, and this is reminding me of like something you'd see in maybe like West Africa, but to be honest, I don't know my like African art as well as I should. Remember earlier we were talking about how like the tattoos are kind of shown in the woodwork. Here this looks like it could resemble like either a dress that this figure is wearing or scarification, right? And then, ooh, I kind of like how this is kind of showing the hair texture as well. This could also be either scarification or just like decoration, you know? It is wood, so that makes me want to say it's like a little bit more contemporary. Let's say 16 to 1800. And in terms of location, I feel like we usually just guess Benin City here in Nigeria. So let's just see what happens. Let's just see what happens. It's a fun game. I'm gonna stretch a bit. Yeah, go for it. BRB bathroom, no worries at all. Or eczema. It's funny because like I was asking my brother this past week of like, how do you know if you have eczema? Because I have certain parts of you know, like my legs, for example, have been itchy lately, and I've never been this itchy before unless I had like mosquito bites. And because my brother has eczema, I was like, is this something that could just develop later in life? But anyway, that's neither here nor there. Let's guess 1600s to 1800s, Benin City. Ooh, not too far. So this looks like it's from the Congo, and it looks like the culture that made it is called Luba. Either that or that's the location. There are other kinds of biting insects. The thing is, I'm not seeing any bite marks or rashes. Because another thing is, like, my brother said that he has eczema and he gets rashes, but for me, it's just, like, itchy. And I've been to the dermatologist, and he was like, it could just be, like, whatever, like, what's it called? Detergent that I'm using? Because he says that it looks like just contact dermatitis, because I'm not getting any rashes, it's just itchy. And my mom has been saying, like, maybe your skin's just dry. Like, I think you just need to hydrate more. So I actually have been trying to hydrate more. But the drawback with that is that you're going to the bathroom every hour on the hour. But yeah, alright, so it looks like this is from Congo. The Luba people. Luba people occupy a land of rivers and savanna in the southeast of what's today the Democratic Republic of the Congo. As early as the 17th century, Luba society consisted of an extensive, centrally organized state structured on the principles of divine kingship and ruled by council. This ornate and impressive seat of leadership belonged to a Luba chief. Luba leaders trace their ancestry to a dynasty of sacred kings, and Luba royal seats are intended to replicate an original seat of office owned by the progenitor of this divine lineage. Such works associate their owner with the source of his legitimacy. Ah. Lick it more? Okay, maybe I should. I'm gonna end up like with missing patches of fur on my legs because of you guys. I'm gonna end up with like naked patches of fur. I don't want that. But if that's what you guys, if that's what you encourage, then I guess. But alright, last round, final round. We have some kind of picture, right? On my legs. Look, see? It's nice and fluffy right now. You guys want to ruin that? You guys want to ruin these perfectly fluffy legs? God, I just realized like how funny the idea of me being like, my legs have been itchy lately, Bibin Cubs. What do you think it is? And like, because I'm thinking in terms of like humans, like, you know, ailments. But as a bear, could it be ticks? Like, as a bear, is there a possibility that there's ticks underneath this blurple fur of mine? Rip off the legs, get new ones? I could do that. What are legs? What are these legs you speak of? What's this on my table? Be careful with that Lyme disease. Dang it. Also, hello, Mr. Rage. It's nice to see ya. Yeah, don't worry about those legs. They're gone now. Lyme disease. Okay, this is our last object that we're guessing right now in Anthropium. It looks like a picture, but I'm actually not too sure where this could be from. What is stone paste? What is? It says here that it's made out of stone paste, polychrome painted under transparent glaze. Is that not ceramic? Is this like carved out of stone? Is it a ground up stone that's essentially been turned into like a clay? Essentially, what is stone paste? I've never heard of that before. Because I was gonna say if this is ceramic, then it's white, which like I would associate with like Kowloon ceramics, aka like China, but you could also see it across like Europe and parts of like West and Central Asia as well, right? What is stone paste? I'm honestly not sure, especially with these decorations, right? These look like tulips, right? Don't these flowers kind of look like tulips? What if we guess like the Netherlands, right? Maybe this is a Dutch work? And maybe it's contemporary. We haven't seen a lot of contemporary European art on here yet. A lot of the European art that we see on here, and we do have an ad break in about a minute, has been more so like medieval or older, right? Like Roman. So if this is maybe contemporary, that would be interesting. What if we say like here 1500s to 1750s, right? Let's say something like that. Age of Exploration type-ish. Let's take a guess. Oh, it's Turkey. It's a ewer. Early 17th century. Polychrome painted under transparent glaze from Turkey, and not too much other details. But alright, so it's a ewer, and it's from Turkey. That's all the info that we're gonna get, but we got pretty close in terms of time period. So the ad break is about to start soon. We got top 9%. I'll post this on the Discord. And during the ad break, for any new students that don't know, I take a break as well. So you're not going to miss out on anything. But I'm going to put you guys over here in the cub corner. Alright? So I'll see you guys after the ad break. Okay, we're back. That felt pretty short. I think it was because I was putting my results in the Discord, but I was also reading some other things. Like, for example, let's get back to class. I looked up what stone paste is. It's this. It's something called fritware. Here, let me zoom in. It's a type of pottery in which ground glass, frit, is added to clay to reduce its fusion temperature. So I didn't know that. That's pretty cool. So, let's see, composition. Was invented in the medieval Islamic world to give it a strong white body, which combined with tin glazing allowed it to approximate the white color of Chinese porcelain. Oh, that makes sense. Oh, look, this even looks like the one that we were looking at earlier from the Met, right? Yeah, that makes sense. Ah, it even has similar colors like this red, the green, the blues, right? Interesting, interesting. Cool, the more you know. The more you know. But alright, so our last daily is Time Guesser, but we're not going to do that right now. We're actually going to do it at the end of stream, as I mentioned. Yeah, medieval Islamic world, exactly. Hello, Nina. Hello. Yeah, we're going to do Time Guesser at the end after we study up on the main event for today, which is the 1900s. So, hello, Nina. We actually are just about to get started with today's lesson. The first hour was just yapping and doing our dailies. So, you're just in time. Sagot gulaman. Yeah, we were just talking about Filipino food earlier. We were just talking about pancit and the difference between knowing Bisaya and Tagalog, because I barely know any Bisaya, even though my mom is Bisaya. I know maayong buntag and maayong gabi, and that's it. That's about the extent of it. But I know a good amount of Tagalog. But actually, we are gonna talk. I keep mentioning like we are gonna talk about that later. We're gonna talk about that later. We're gonna. I've been saying that all stream because there are a lot of cool segues into what we're gonna talk about today, because there is a Philippines mention today. There is a Philippines mention. Yeah, pretty neat stuff. Don't worry, my mom's Ilocano. She's mad I never picked up Ilocano. That's how my mom feels too, but it's like, you were the one that was supposed to teach me, though. like my mom was the one who knew Bisaya, and then she didn't teach me, so like, why is she complaining that I don't know Bisaya? Right? Yo, Nap, hello. It's your boy Teddy, right? It's Teddy. Roosevelt. Despite her having all the time to try and teach me. Yes, exactly, you know. Oh my gosh, I feel you so much, Nina. I feel you. Wait, where's that? Hold on. There's this like JoJo meme that I feel like is underrated. JoJo. It's like a duang. This is like how I feel right now. It's one of them duang duang translations. Me to Nina. I feel you. I feel you deeply. You're feeling I can feel deeply. That Teddy Roosevelt face is meme react worthy, right? I love Teddy Roosevelt's faces in this one. And overall, he did pretty good as a president too. Not perfect, you know, there were some things such as relations with the rest of Latin America that I have issue with, but overall, very progressive guy. Let's see, she had the gall to retort at me. You know where I learned Ilocano? From my elders, and it's like, you were the elder who was who was supposed to? Question mark, question mark. Yes, 100%. 100%. Me with my mom in Bisaya, and it's like, you were the person who was supposed to teach me the language. Who's gonna teach me? My dad, who doesn't speak it at all? You know? I always think of epic rap battles where they use the photo to scream, "What's up, beaches?" Name one perfect person. Dolly Parton. That is true. That is true. True. But yeah, so today we are going to be talking about the 1900s. For those that don't know why we're doing this, we're trying to get good at Time Guesser. We're going a decade at a time, and this isn't our first rodeo. We actually started in the 1920s. Because I was like, oh, we're in the 2020s, so let's start 100 years ago. not realizing that Time Guesser actually starts in the 1900s. So we went through the 1920s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000s, and 2010s. And then we flipped it and reversed it. And then we went back to the 1900s. So this is going to be strange because we went from talking about the... Hold on, let me zoom out here so you can see the full extent of our decade studies thus far. So as you can see, we started at the 1920s, went through all the decades, and we last spoke about the 2010s. And here, there was just so much to talk about because it was all in recent memory for like pretty much everyone here. You know, there were so many like technological advancements. There was so much to talk about pop culture wise with like different video games and shows and movies and like all these things and music and like aesthetics and fashion and art movements and like different kinds of cars and stuff. So by comparison, the research and maybe even the discussion for today with the 1900s feels like kind of simple, like a little bit like simplistic by comparison, but I do promise you there was still a lot going on in the 1900s. And doing this research actually like debunked a lot of like previous like feelings I had towards the 1900s, because it's like the more divorced you get from like our current time, the more you feel like everything is kind of like old-timey and almost like homogenous, that like everything is samey, right? Everything was more conservative, everything was more, you know, like less technology, everything was like less this, less that. But like for its time, the 1900s was one pretty progressive because of like not just Theodore Roosevelt, but also like all the people that he ran against. It's funny, I was watching, I think it was like Crash Course History, and they were talking about like I think the election where Taft ended up winning, 1908, I want to say. And I believe they said something like, by today's standards, all of the candidates of that election would all be like left. You know, they would all be on the left side of the political spectrum, with one being like they call themselves like a socialist party, but they were straight up into like kind of like more communist ideals. Whereas like the most right-leaning person was still on the left side of the spectrum. So like it's like interesting. So like things were a little bit more progressive, especially for its time. There were a lot of things that were like for example, like I think a good example is like ragtime music. I think for a lot of us living right now in the 21st century, you might be hearing this type of music that's playing right now. You might be like, oh, it's so old-timey, you know, like I imagine like, you know, upper-class families dancing to the ragtime. And actually, no, like this was definitely something that came about as a result of a, first of all, like African-American black composer named Scott Joplin. And for its time, this was kind of like this was like for the time period, this would be considered like subversive, like kind of music. So it's like interesting to think about. Like I came into this research being like, like look, everyone's like, no one's showing any ankle, first of all. Like no ankles are to be seen here. It's so conservative, right? Everyone's so uppity and everything. So like, especially because this is also the decade of like the continuation of like colonialism, you know? Like you don't really expect too much of like what we might consider like progressive, but it's like, in fact, it's more progressive, like arguably like in some ways like more progressive than like some of the stuff we have nowadays. But first of all, let me catch up on chat and then we'll get right into the swing of things. My dad started learning Ilongo in his 60s. Oh, cool. Yeah, like I feel like it's never too late to like learn a language or just learn anything really. So cool. Good on him. Teddy Pick is such a good reaction pick. It's like the and then Fugubi, you summon the cats. You see an ankle? Binka's ankles! No, it's covered by the music thing. It's covered by Spotify. Spotify's covering up my ankles pretty good. But alright, so we are going to talk about... Oh, another weird thing too. Not weird, but like another thing that I'm not too used to with rewinding back to the 1900s is that like a lot of the culture that we've been talking about, the seat of like kind of like, I guess like the center of culture, the seat of power within the 21st century is definitely like the US and parts of like Western Europe, right? Like a lot of like the cultural things are coming out of like that's not to say there's no culture in anywhere else, but like in terms of like where like a lot of pop culture is getting disseminated from is like a lot of like US American stuff, and then like Western Europe especially. Here the like in the 1900s the US wasn't a big power yet. Like it was getting there. It was getting there. But it wasn't yet like the humongous power that it was going to be. So a lot of the like fashion trends, a lot of the pop culture, a lot of that was actually going to come from Europe. And that would be the case up until like I want to say World War II, when like a lot of the like pop culture stuff would be moved towards America instead. And once again, this isn't me saying that there isn't any culture anywhere else, but like we're talking about like kind of like Western culture, Western pop culture, that kind of stuff. Like for like now that we rewind back to the 1900s, it's more so in Europe, especially Paris. So a lot of the art movements we're gonna talk about, they start in Paris. A lot of the like fashion, the political stuff is gonna start in like France and Paris, with a little smidge of like London and Germany in there as well. But yeah, with that said, let's go ahead and get straight into it. So once again, for me personally, since I'm Bear American, the thing to kind of ground myself is knowing like who the presidents were during this time. So at the very beginning, you had a little smidge of William McKinley, but it was the end of his term. So this decade was pretty, especially in the US, was marked by Theodore Roosevelt's presidency. In the UK, it was marked by King Edward VII. So in the UK, this is referred to as like the Edwardian era, even though he wouldn't succeed to power until 1901, technically. So very similar to TR over here, to Teddy Roosevelt. But this did mark the end of the Victorian period as well, because Queen Victoria would pass away in 1901. And then at the very tail end of 1909, William Howard Taft, who we actually see here, who was so far our biggest president, aka our fattest president. Which, by the way, I'm not saying that's a bad thing. So like that was at the tail end of 1909. Have you ever heard Teddy's actual voice? I have. I'm a big fan, actually, of Teddy Roosevelt's voice, because a lot of people are like, it's so high pitched, and like, yeah, for a guy, it's pretty high pitched, but like, I'm a fan. I don't know. It feels very like old-timey in like a comforting way, you know? Hello, Orlando. Hello, magandang gabi ka sa inyong lahat. Ako si Binka. But yeah, we're talking about the 1900s today. But yeah, I have heard Teddy Roosevelt's actual voice. Actually, if you guys want to hear it yourself, let me see if I can get a clip real quick. But yeah, he does have like a higher pitched voice for a guy, but it's not like someone on helium, you know? Like, it's just like he still sounds like a guy, you know? Teddy Roosevelt's voice. I'm gonna pause the Spotify, and then let's see which one of these gives us... Here we go. We won't listen to the whole speech, but... to control themselves. Wow, look at how dapper he looks in this painting. Oh my god, it's Robin Williams. Dude, every one of his pictures is like so good. Like, what is it with him in like these like awesome pictures, right? I like his voice. I like his voice a lot. That's not just me saying that. Like, I don't know, as a femme presenting person with a bit of a deeper voice, I'm a big fan of a masculine of a guy, of a dude, masculine presenting dude with a higher pitched voice. I don't like it. It's just that every portrayal in media gives him a deep, bombastic voice. Yeah, I'm thinking like even Night at the Museum, right? Even Robin Williams kind of gives him like a deeper voice. But then I think it's also because Robin Williams just has a deeper voice, right? Gundam Pinka. If he doesn't sound like Ted, dang. No Seth MacFarlane for us today. Alright, let's get the ragtime back on. me also raise it up a little bit. Hides his voice. Your voice is awesome, Mauser. I'm just saying that, like, I like the, would it be considered like Gap Moe? Would it be considered Gap Moe? Should I call Teddy Roosevelt Gap Moe for having like a higher pitched voice? Alright. Let's get back into it. Oh yeah, I'm looking at my OBS screen and I'm also realizing voice and face for radio. You're so modest. You're so modest, you. I'm realizing I should zoom in so you could actually like read some of this. Ain't no way. Alright, so let's get into it. So, yeah, so this was the presidency of Teddy Roosevelt in the US, and a lot of his policies were considered progressive. I would consider them progressive, including the Square Deal, which called for fairness for all citizens, breaking bad trust, regulating railroads, and pure food and drugs, as in, like, he was one of the people that was kind of advocating for, like, better quality in, like, food production and stuff like that. And when he says drugs, by the way, he's not talking about, like, you know, recreational drugs, like the Mary Jane and the cocaine and the meth. It's more so like the over-the-counter drugs that you would take for like medicine. Breaking Bad mentioned. I am the one who knocks. Anyway, meanwhile, over in the UK, it was the Edwardian era because Edward the, I believe, 7th would assume the throne after the death of his mother, Queen Victoria. Don't forget all the conservation stuff. We have national parks thanks to him. Yes, exactly. Exactly. So yeah, that is thanks to Teddy Roosevelt. And by all means, he is one of the more like progressive leaning presidents. It's just funny, like when you do research on him, where it's like this guy, like if you are a left leaning person, he seems like the perfect president, right? But there were some parts that like it's like he definitely advocated for freedom for all in America. Not to sound like Bandit Keith, but when it came to Latin America, yeah. So, but from that, yeah, so we have the Edwardian era in the UK. It was still the economic powerhouse of the decade, but was soon surpassed in industrial production by the US and Germany. And then in the rest of Europe, especially France, where, like I said, kind of like the seat of both like pop culture and just like things like fashion and trends. This was known as La Belle Époque. I don't speak French. La Belle Époque, the beautiful era. The beautiful era, say his name. And this was a period of relative peace between the Franco-Prussian War and, I didn't finish writing this down, but the Franco-Prussian War and basically the Great War, which would become known to us as World War I. So between 1871 and 1914, this was a period of relative peace. And all around, a lot of Western powers, so France, UK, Germany, Italy, Spain, etc., they all enjoyed rapid industrialization and urbanization, but contributed in part, I do kind of want to like kind of nail this in, from the riches and resources they got from colonies, from colonization. So while colonialism didn't start in this decade, it was definitely like still up and running, and a lot of powers were benefiting from colonization during this time. So this included colonies in Africa, Asia, and the Americas. So for example, Spain and Portugal were benefiting a lot from the Spanish colonies in the Americas. And then like definitely like this was also during the scramble for Africa, as well as this the Yellow Boxer Rebellion, where like the European powers and Japan like, for some reason, well, we know the reason, but they were pretty much carving up China, which you can see in this political cartoon, which if you ever took like, you know, AP European history or just like focus on European history in school, this should be a familiar picture to you. But this is an alliance of different countries that were basically carving up China after the the Boxer Rebellion, essentially. So this includes, I believe this is supposed to be Queen Victoria, which like symbolizes the UK. This was either Prussia or Germany. This was Russia. I believe that's Tsar Nicholas II. This is Marianne, who is the anthropomorphization of France. and then a generic samurai for Japan, carving up China, which is represented by this stereotypical like picture over here. There's a Sabaton song called The Great War. Let's see, The Great War. Imagine going back to the 1920s and asking when World War II was. Yeah, imagine just being like, is this World War I or II? And you're just like, what? Like I said, it's kind of like, imagine someone coming to our time and being like, is this after the first COVID pandemic or the second? And we're like, the what? And guess what it's about? Yeah, the Great War. Can't believe it was so good they made a second one. Yeah, I'm trying to remember like who this would be. I want to say Otto von Bismarck, right? Yeah, it does happen in a Doctor Who episode. I forget which doctor did it, but there was like they did do that World War I and II joke where the person was just like, what? But yeah, so like they were carving up China, they were carving up Africa. You did see things like this. So this is a infamous political cartoon known as The White Man's Burden, and it is this political cartoon which shows like this guy who is basically a representation of the UK, I believe John Bull, right? And then we have Uncle Sam representing America, and on their backs are these baskets full of people representing, for example, like the Zulu Nation, India, China. I'm not sure what the rest of these are representing. But they're carrying them. Over here, America is shown with their recent acquisitions from the Spanish-American War, which includes Hawaii, Cuba, Puerto Rico, and the Philippines. And they are carrying them out of the goodness of their heart, carrying them towards civilization, while trudging over these rocks that represent things like ignorance and vice and superstition and stuff like that. And it's like out of the goodness of their heart, the white man is educating these the non-white man, and it's like cringe, bro. This is so cringe. Because if anything, it's more like this is kind of like a counter cartoon to that, where it's showing the people that are quote-unquote being like civilized, they're carrying the burden of the white man themselves, right? Oh, it was Capaldi. See, John Bull, inventor of bowls. Sisyphus could never, for real though, right? So that was another thing, is that during this time, I'm very well versed. Well, not well versed, but I do know of this topic. Of 1898 was the Spanish-American War, in which Spain and America went to war with one another, and after being soundly defeated and realizing that they had to cut their costs, cut their losses, Spain eventually handed over Puerto Rico, Cuba, and Guam, and the Philippines over to America. Without any consent, by the way, from the people of those locations. It was done via a treaty. I believe it was the Treaty of Paris, where there was no representative, at least for the Philippines. I'm not sure about Cuba, Puerto Rico, and Guam, but there was definitely no representation of the Philippines at this. It was just Spain and America essentially agreeing like, all right, I'll give you my colonies. As kind of a, yo, you am big in the bink. So yeah, like basically, the Philippines went from being a Spanish colony to an American one, and they did not take that sitting down. They were not happy about that, which actually started the Philippine-American War. Now, this isn't a war that's taught in a lot of American schools, at least from my own memory. In fact, it was like a single sentence in my history textbook back when I was in high school. I don't know if that's changed at all since then, but yeah. Every time I come to your stream, I find opportunities to hear Yakko's World. The US went to assist the Filipinos to fight the Spanish for freedom, only to move in. Exactly. In fact, I'm gonna pin that. That's exactly what happened. So, there was the Philippine-American War, and a not-so-fun fact about this war is that this is where waterboarding was invented. So, yeah, that's kind of going to show what the Americans were doing during war times during this time. So, in the aftermath of that, eventually the Filipinos were defeated, and they essentially had to surrender to being an American colony. The Philippine-American War was basically the precursor to Vietnam. The Colt 45 was developed to put down the Moro warriors in the Philippine-American War. Yeah, that part I didn't know. That part I didn't know, but like I wouldn't be surprised, you know? It's like I'm surprised, but I'm also not surprised. So this is a political cartoon from this time where like the soldiers are going home after fighting the war. And now are coming the teachers. The men are going home, the women are coming in to teach the Filipinos about quote-unquote civilization. And they're depicted here as these like, you know, islander like people. They're dressed in like leaves and like rags and stuff like that. But the funny thing is, and I'm sorry, I'm just so passionate about this topic because like I am a Filipino and I've also studied this bit of the history. But if you look at Filipinos in the 19th century, mind you, they were already a Spanish colony for 300 years prior to this. They're not dressed in like leaves and rags and stuff. They're dressed like this. They're dressed in like Western clothing because of the 300 years of colonization. And even before that, they like if we go to the Boxer Codex, even before that, they had like gold jewelry and they had like their own like economic systems and writing systems and they had their own society. So like this idea of like portraying them with just like rags and leaves and stuff is like definitely an attempt to make them seem very childlike, very like barbaric, right? And it's less like the intended audience for these like political cartoons were fellow Americans being like, oh, we're civilizing them, look at them, they can't rule themselves. They're living in like huts and, you know, they're eating each other and stuff like that. And so like instead of just showing that like, yeah, these are people that have for one like were already colonized for over 300 years by this point. But also like we're fully capable of governing themselves. In fact, there's a banger movie called General Luna that goes over one of the generals that fought in the Philippine-American War, and it's pretty sick. I liked it. I like the actor that portrays General Luna. So yeah, let's see what you guys are saying in the chat. Tayo na leaves and rags. Meron naman kami barong Tagalog. Exactly. Like they're portraying people in like leaves and stuff. We had like fancy clothing. We had the Barong Tagalog, which is basically this like kind of like translucent but like very nice looking outfit. Specifically, Moro warriors would bind their limbs so that they took longer to bleed out. The revolver was developed so it had the stopping power to one-shot a berserker, basically. That's insane. HGTQW5, hello. We are talking about the 1900s. I got into a tangent about the Philippine-American War and how colonialism was trying to show not just the Philippines, but basically any like colonized nation or culture as like barbaric. And this was to kind of like show that like a lot of European powers were like quote unquote civilizing them when like a lot of these cultures were already civilized before the Europeans came in. Also, the more you describe this, the more it feels like the song Civilization Bongo 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 was actually meant for the Philippines and not the Congo. I don't know if I've actually like heard that one, but I wouldn't be surprised because like anything that I'm saying right now about like the Philippines is probably also applicable to like other cultures that were colonized by Western powers. But let's get back into it. So yeah, that is gonna be kind of like a big thing, and this is even gonna affect how art is like the art movements of this time. So we also have a couple of other conflicts around this time. So this is a picture of basically the Philippine-American War. Here are the Philippine soldiers over here. By the way, look at how they're portrayed over here. They're wearing uniforms. Like they're not wearing leaves and like rags, you know, like they're straight up wearing like Western looking uniforms of their own. They have guns. Like they have guns and horses, my dude. Like so like even their own, you know, like picture shows that like yeah, these aren't like quote unquote like barbarians, you know? But yeah, this is an image like showing the Philippine-American War, and this is an image showing the Russo-Japanese War. So let's talk a little bit about that. So yeah, I mentioned the scramble for Africa, a lot of atrocities by different European colonial powers, especially King Leopold and in the Congo. The Panama Canal was also like being constructed during this time, but if we talk about conflicts, yeah, there's the Philippine-American War and then the Russo-Japanese War. So what this is, this was a war between Japan and Russia. Not for like a good reason, I want to say, but it was basically for like imperial ambitions. Basically, they both saw Korea and a part of China known as Manchuria, and they were like, it's free real estate. It's free real estate. Despite the fact that there's like, you know, people living there, cultures living there, you know, all that kind of stuff. So both of them fought over this land, and Russia actually suffered a very humiliating defeat. Which, because of all the money and the troops that were sent over to fight this war, it led to a lot of domestic unrest, and it actually led to the Russian Revolution of 1905, which I didn't actually go into too much detail about over here. But just know that it did cause a revolution. I don't know if this is the revolution that would lead to, basically, unseating the Romanov family. So, like, for example, if you've seen the movie Anastasia, that's kind of like the background of that. I'm not sure if this is the revolution that caused that. But yeah, there was a revolution that happened during this time. So yeah, those were some of the conflicts. I'm trying to remember if there's anything else. I think now we can just move over to science and technology. So, but yeah, don't, you know, keep that information about colonialism in your back pocket, because it is gonna, it's a handy thing that we're gonna be looking at later on. But science and technology. So, I was talking about, like, when we were talking about the 2010s, how we're, you know, looking at technology through the lens of, like, smartphones, and, like, we have the first, you know, image of, like, a black hole and stuff like that. So one might think that, like, if we're going all the way back to the 1900s, like, oh, you know, like, what technology? What kind of technology can we talk about from the 1900s, you know? A lot, actually. I think so. It's the communists versus the royalists. Ah, okay. So I guess this is the context for the Romanov family being unseated, and then the context for like Anastasia and stuff. So good to know. Good to know. So a lot of technology was actually happening during this time, including the first successful flight by the Wright brothers. So that's what was happening here. You also got the popularization of the internal combustion engine. So I don't think I put a picture of it here, but basically leading to a lot of different like mechanical inventions, and like even being used in stuff like cars, which we're gonna go over today as well. So cars, the phonograph, which was used to record things. That's why we were able to hear the voice of Theodore Roosevelt earlier during the stream. Impressive technology such as the hula hoop. I actually don't know, was the hula hoop actually invented during this time? I wouldn't be surprised if that was the case. But some other things that were invented during this time include the alkaline battery, electric typewriter, radio receiver. So now we're going to be getting some radio stuff in the pop culture portion. Air conditioning, which I know a lot of people are thankful for now, right now. Right, so air conditioning was invented during this time. Color photography was a pretty surprising one. So yeah, color photography dates back as far back as the 1900s. Do you guys know who this is? Do you guys want to take a guess as to who this is? A lot of mechanical devices from the 1900s still work even today. The construction of those was incredibly sturdy. Yes, before, oh, what's that word again? The, when you intentionally make something crappy so that people will buy another one. Yes, Gojikins, you got it. It's Mark Twain. This is a color photograph of Mark Twain. He's just chilling. Wasn't it that like he was born during one of the last passes of Halley's Comet, and he died during like the next Passover, right? Yeah, planned obsolescence. Yes, exactly. So before planned obsolescence, things used to be pretty sturdy. What a concept, right? Photograph that looks like a painting. Yeah, it's a photo. It's a color photo. In fact, there are a couple, I think I got a color. Yeah, this one is another color photograph from that time when we talk about fashion. So color photography was a thing by this point, and there's even, I even got this website. This looks like it's from the 90s. Like, that looks like a hoodie, right? But let's take a look-see. So this is from the 1910s. This is from 1914 Paris, right? Some would rather. Yeah, 100%. Yeah, this too. So color photography was developed during this time, but it wasn't widespread. The process for it wasn't as simple as like, say, like, you know, in the 80s and 90s when you just had like color film, right? But yeah, there was color photography at this point in time. So that's why sometimes it doesn't help us when it comes to... Oh, Schnackery. That's why when we play Time Guesser and we see like a photograph and it's like, oh, it's black and white, so it must be this time period. It depends because like certain parts of the world had access to color photography as early as the 1900s, but other parts wouldn't get like popular access to it like well into like say the 90s or even the 2000s. Schnackery, what's up? He wants attention. I love autochrome photos. It makes the past feel more alive. Oh yeah, totally. Given the revival of old fashions in the 80s, 90s, you could have a picture like that and you'd not be sure if it was from then or the 80s, 90s, right? Like, look at this fashion. I could totally imagine someone wearing something like this, right? This is a cool one too. Air balloons in Paris. Here we go, the Twain himself. Autochrome. Yeah, doesn't this look like a hoodie, right? Christina in red. Oh, this one's awesome. An outdoor market in Paris. Women smoking opium. Two girls in Oriental... Not the Orientalism. Von Besten painting in his garden. Sweden. 1910. Family portrait in Belgium. And even a young samurai. Bosnia-Herzegovina, Sarajevo, 1912. Mother making fringes for knitted shawls. Ooh, look at this car. 1913, 1914. This is an interesting one. Look at this one. Lunch of a French soldier in front of a damaged bookshop, 1917. So this was during World War I, during the Great War. And this is a nice one too. 1915, 1913. 1908. And yeah, I won't go through all of them, but if you guys want to look at these yourself, I will put this in the chat. The meowing is loud. I know he wants attention. There's a few collections of these types of photos in various archives, but I wish there was more. Yeah, definitely. Because yeah, you're right. It does make the past feel alive, and it's not to say that like black and white photos can't do the same, but they're... I don't know, it just feels a little bit less divorced from our current time period. Loud and opinionated, he certainly is. But yeah, we have a couple other figures here in terms of science and technology. So we do have Thomas Edison with the phonograph. We have Albert Einstein with his infamous E equals MC squared. And then we have Pierre and Marie Curie, who discovered radium and polonium and coined the term radioactivity. And then in terms of pop culture, this is before, you know, the TV shows and video games and stuff like that, and even radio shows. But we do have books such as The Tale of Peter Rabbit by Beatrix Potter, Anne of Green Gables, The Wonderful Wizard of Oz, and The Jungle by Upton Sinclair. There was also the world's first feature film, The Story of the Kelly Gang. I don't know if it was the first film, because I keep hearing that the first film was that one about the KKK. Was it like Birth of a Nation or something like that? So I don't know if this is rather the first film that was featured all over the world. But yeah, that's what Wikipedia says. Important to note too is that this is where you see the first wave of like widespread feminism. Where now countries are starting to grant more rights to women. Not as much as you would see in, say, like, later years, but it was a start. You had to start somewhere. So you did have Finland as the first nation to grant women suffrage in 1906, and then, or I think first Western nation to grant women suffrage. And then universities in Japan, Bulgaria, Cuba, Russia, and Peru would start granting access to women during this time as well. And then music. We have Ragtime. Honestly, it feels like I could not care about the first feature film unless I know about the director's age. Right? It's like, oh, what's this film gonna be about? What's it gonna be about? And yeah, music. So let's talk a little bit about music. So the music you're hearing right now through Spotify is Ragtime. But you also had the very beginnings of vaudeville jazz, and then the beginning of recorded music via the phonograph and the gramophone. Excuse me. Let me drink some water. Okay, so I ran out of water, but Beans is gonna go get some more for me. Meanwhile, Schnackery's laying on his belly, being a little chungus. Film as in long video, because I'm pretty sure the first one was about the rocket hitting the moon in the eye. Oh, I have seen that one. And I know that even Futurama referenced that one, right? Is that the first film? Because that's the thing, I just kind of read this little factoid, first feature film, off of just like the Wikipedia article, and I wasn't sure because I thought I heard that Birth of a Nation was the first film. So, someone feel free to correct me in that regard, because I have heard about the rocket hitting the moon in the eye, but I'm not entirely sure. But yeah, when it comes to Ragtime, like I said, like I'm gonna put the volume up a little bit on the Spotify music. Us in the 21st century, we might be listening to this and we might have certain, you know, like connections to the music in terms of like, oh yeah, this is what you hear when you say listen to like silent movies. Oh, give me a second. Alright, I got my water, and it's good. So yeah, this feels like old-timey music, right? But for its time, and I'm gonna demonstrate this with a video, it was quite subversive. So let me stop this one. And let's watch this. This is from a scene from a 1977 movie about Scott Joplin, who was the composer who made a pretty famous song. In fact, I'll play a little bit of it right now. You've like 100% heard this before. This one. Do 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 do. So yeah, this was composed by Scott Joplin. So let me put a pause to that, and then let's watch this video really quickly from this 1977 movie. And just take a look at how it's portrayed. Their faces. Dang. So yeah, we're not gonna play the whole thing, but if you want to watch this, I actually haven't seen this movie yet. I would like to after watching this scene. I think it's pretty sick. I think it's pretty cool. Let me go ahead and switch back over to This one. There we go. And we'll put the ragtime back on. Put the volume down a little bit. There we go. Why did I hear SpongeBob laugh in the background? I don't know. I don't know. But I don't know, that scene was just pretty cool in a way because it kind of, like I said, debunks this idea of like, oh yeah, like this is like, you know, old-timey music that like everyone's just like dancing to. It's the ice cream truck tune. Yeah, exactly. For its time, it was seen as very subversive. Like, I don't know if you guys noticed, but like the setting that they were in was actually oh, what's the nice way of saying this? A whorehouse. Like, but yeah, it was you know, this wasn't being played at church, you know. And the way that like the pianos were dueling and the way that the crowd was kind of egging them on, it almost felt like, you know, like a modern rap battle, you know. So like I said, it's just interesting to see what we consider to be like, you know, old-timey and stuff, and like maybe a little too like prudish, was for its time, this was radical. This was like very subversive. So yeah, that's what I learned about ragtime. I didn't do that much research about Scott Joplin himself, other than just like looking into his music. But I would like to check out that film. It looks pretty cool. So yeah, those were some of the things that were happening in the 1900s. And from here, let's go ahead and talk about fashion before we go into cars, and then talk about the art of the time, because I'm actually pretty excited for this. I found out about an artist that I didn't know about that has some pretty creepy artwork. I don't know if I should do a content warning for just like disturbing looking artwork, but we're gonna look at the artwork of, I believe his name is Odilon Redon, in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Whoa. It's kind of creepy looking, right? This is Polyphemus from Greek mythology, but we'll get into that later on. But yeah, I'm excited to talk about some of these art movements because, like, for example, Fauvism is one of my favorites because of its use of color, but that's gonna be for the end. For now, let's go ahead and go over to fashion, and look who we have here. We have our dapper presidents. Before we get into that, I think what you have to keep in mind is that the music in prior centuries and even decades was the arena of nobility and academics. They tended to get pretty pissy when anyone of lower status made their own stuff. Yeah, definitely, 100%. Yeah, that's like definitely what that's what I had ended up like kind of debunking in my head. Of like, oh yeah, I keep on feeling like all old music is like very prissy, you know? Only to find out that like, no, this was like the people's music of the day. Isn't that the guy whose eye nobody stabbed? Exactly, oh Orlando, exactly. And yes, Matthew, thank you for the content warning. We'll take a look at that probably in about an hour or so, depending on how fast we get through fashion. So here are examples of, like, even studying the fashion of the time is like interesting because for its time, this was seen as like not necessarily scandalous, but definitely looser than the decades before. And it's funny because you could hear Schnacker, you could hear the like when we went over to the 1920s and we were seeing the women's fashion of the time, like this was a pretty dramatic departure from what came before. So because of that, I was like, oh, the fashion of the 1900s and 1910s is pretty prudish, right? Because you're not seeing no ankles and stuff like that. But no, compared to like what came before, this was also a pretty radical departure for its time, and I'll kind of talk about that. The whimsy of ragtime was seen as outright mockery of the classics because for screw the poor for trying to have fun. Exactly. So like this was kind of like what rock and roll would be seen as like later on when we get to like, or when we were talking about like the 50s and 60s. And it's funny because like nowadays if you have like Gen Z or Gen Alpha listening to like old school rock and roll, it's like, oh, this is pretty tame. You know, it was pretty tame for the time. Even like I feel like old like glam rock and like metal Like, I feel like the younger generations are seeing that as, like, pretty tame for the time, because, like, the music that they listen to now feels, like, a bit different in that regard. But for its time, it was very radical. Same with, like, the example I like to bring up is, like, The Simpsons. I think, like, if you show a younger person The Simpsons, they might be like, well, what's the big deal? Like, yeah, it's pretty funny. Like, it's pretty funny, but, like, why was this such a huge, you know, like pop culture sensation? And it's because for its time, a lot of the shows didn't have, like, this kind of family dynamic. It was all very, like, kind of wholesome, but also, like, very much into, like, the nuclear family where, like, the dad's always right, he's always, like, the center of the household, you know. So to have this kind of, like, Dennis the Menace type character and a dad that's kind of, like, fumbling around, that wasn't as common back in the day. And now that we have stuff like Family Guy and American Dad and, like, later shows that kind of, like, go off of that formula, The Simpsons doesn't seem as, like, radical as it was for its time. Even the name rock and roll was a term for hand holding. Don't show 40s kids Malcolm in the Middle. I know, that would give them a heart attack. These things broke the taboo that allowed it to be commonplace. Exactly. So that's exactly what we're seeing with, like, things like ragtime and then, like, the fashion. So let's talk a little bit about it. So the 1900s marked the beginning of haute couture, or like, high fashion being a thing, where there was this, like, separation between, like, you know, like, fashion that was just made for the sake of, like, fashion design or for upper classes versus, like, what the regular people were wearing. And for women's fashion, they were doing away with, well, actually, by the 1800s, they already did away with the bustle or like, the wireframe undergarment. If you see, like, really old-timey, like, 1700s, 1800s, like, fashion, where, like, the skirt is coming out way more, right? They did away with that by the 1900s. So this was already kind of, like, a big departure from, like, what came before. Because now the silhouettes were slimmer. Women were still wearing corsets, though. They're still wearing corsets, and then they were trying to make this S-shaped silhouette. It's not as accentuated here, but, like, you still had that, like, kind of, like, hourglass figure. But I think notable during this time is kind of this pigeon breast shape that you see here, where, like, the upper part of the shirt is kind of draping over the waist. And the waist was still accentuated with, like, belts and stuff, but, like, it feels very, like, baggy on top, and then it kind of slims down in the middle and then, like, loosens out. It turns into kind of like a bell shape afterwards. So you see it here. You see it definitely with this, like, pigeon breast shape, this kind of, like, bird-like figure. And then you see it here as well, that super narrow waist, but, like, super baggy up here, and then it, like, blossoms out. So at the time, the idea of the Gibson girl, the modern, slender, and confident woman, became popular. And once again, we were talking about, like, this was also the time of first wave feminism. So, like, this idea of, like, oh, women can, like, participate in more things in the public sphere, like sports and active things, because, like, activewear was also part of it. For example, this was kind of activewear for a woman back then. She would have sometimes a divided skirt with bloomers underneath. So you still didn't show ankle. Like, you still didn't show ankle, but, like, at least you could move around. I also really like this picture. It's a woman ironing. It's a working class woman ironing, but it's a really good, like, photo of, like, what the silhouette looked like for the time, right? Like I said, very puffy top, cinched waist, and then it blossoms out. What else do we have here? So near the beginning of the decade, skirts brushed the floor, sometimes with a train, like this, but shortened to closer to the ankles as the decade progressed. And then I already talked about active lifestyles. And then by mid-decade, wide-brimmed hats were popular, especially with masses of ribbons, flowers, feathers, and sometimes stuffed birds. Unfortunate, but yes. I want her Stein. I have a few like it, but I'm a big Stein collector. Oh, okay. Where's the picture I was looking for? Oh, the hats. Okay, here we go. Big hats. Like this wide brims. Here we go. This is a good picture. Yeah, take a look at these hats. Nice and big. The fact that like they were so big that you could put like a stuffed bird on it is like kind of crazy. And yeah, these are just kind of like artistic depictions of like the Gibson girl, right? Where like they had these big masses of hair kind of like on top of their heads, resting on top of their heads. And like, I don't know, there's something kind of funny about this. Like it feels like she's kind of lamenting that like this guy is like flirting with her. She's like, oh brother, this guy stinks. Like, in terms of men's fashion, longer frock coats were popular carryovers from the 1890s, but you did start seeing shorter coats, tuxedo jackets essentially, become more accepted as formal wear. But for the most part, especially for formal wear, you're going to see these long frock coats that go essentially down to the knee. So TR's rocking it, Taft is rocking it. I couldn't find too many pictures of working class men though. Like I'm sure like they're out there with a simple Google search, but I was just trying to see what like kind of like the popular wear would be. Oh, we have another ad break already. Time flies so fast. Hair was often cut short with less pointed beards and curly mustache. And then top hats were a requirement for formal wear, but you could also see bowlers, Homburg hats, and for the working class, flat caps. And then we also have some kids fashion here. You got your cute little sailor outfits. The girls, I guess I don't have any pictures of the girls, but they would imitate women's fashion of the time. So, all right, let's go ahead and put you guys over in recess. And then I need to drink some water because I already feel my voice kind of going. So I'll see you guys in a couple minutes. Okay, we are back. We're so back. I think I saw Twisty. Hello, welcome, welcome. And then Mauser had to go. Good luck with your 7+ hour road trip. Thanks for stopping by. But let's get right back into it. Let's get right back into the swing of things. So yeah, we just finished talking about fashion. So overall, when it comes to like women's fashion, I'm looking for that, like I said, pigeon breast silhouette. For guys, it's looking more like we're gonna be looking out for longer coats and hats, basically. Things like top hats, bowler hats, etc., etc. So now let's look at cars. Cars are going to be very interesting because if we look at a picture from the 1900s, we're not going to be very likely to see many cars, but on the off chance that we do see them, we need to be able to identify them. So, and the reason is as follows. Hold on, let me just navigate. There we go. So, during this time, so cars were already an invention by then. They were actually invented closer to the 1880s. So it's been about 20 years by the time these, like, the idea of cars were invented, right? Like, people have probably heard of them, but they kind of saw them as like a novelty, just for the rich. But the 1900s was kind of like the turning point where it would transition from being a novelty just for rich people to affordable, particularly due to Henry Ford's production line style thing. Like, Amerly, hello, you got your sticker. But yeah, Henry Ford was, and his company, the Ford company, was basically, they would make things on a production line, and it made them, like, a lot more, it made cars more affordable and easy to obtain for lots of people. Not necessarily, like, even, like, working class, but you would start to see cars more often. Starting with the 1900s. So here's what they look like. I think the most popular one, actually let me pause for a sec. Okay, I was just telling Beans what I was asking what's for dinner. So, and the answer is ramen. We're gonna have ramen. Homemade. But yeah, so the Ford Model A and the Ford Model T were kind of like the popular cars to look out for this time because these were the ones that were, well, affordable. So, here's what they look like. We have the what is this? The Mercedes 35 HP Phaeton. This is 1901. Actually, wait, I should read this part and then we'll move on. So technology-wise, we did start to see the integration of speedometers, windshield wipers, and covers for the engine. Prior to this, the engines were kind of small by comparison, and it kind of looked more like a carriage. Like, cars mostly look like horseless carriages. And thicker wheels. Prior to this, the wheels were a bit thinner, kind of like what you would see from a bicycle. And then roofs. You're not seeing any roofs on top of these cars just yet, but you would start to see some, especially like the convertible kind over here, near the end of the decade. So that's another thing to look out for. If we see cars in the 1900s pictures on Time Guesser, we're going to look for the presence of a roof. And then here are the cars that we have. So we have the Mercedes 35 HP Phaeton. This is from 1901. So the very beginning of the decade, right? One of the things that kind of set this apart from cars of like later decades is like, look at this. Like, this is basically the fender or the cover for the wheels, right? It's its own part. It's not integrated yet with the overall shell of the car. That wouldn't actually be until probably like the 40s, but even then it kind of like juts out. So we're still a long ways away from seeing the fender integrated with the car itself. Yeah, they're also very lifted off the ground. Actually, this one is still pretty low to the ground, but some of them are still kind of lifted off the ground. You did see, like, you could see the steering wheels, the lights. And then there's kind of different kinds too, because these ones seem like the, sorry, this is the Ford Model A is down here. So this is like kind of the affordable model that people would be getting. Also, hello, Bartawolf, you got your sticker. This would be the affordable model. But you also got stuff like the Rolls Royce, which looked like this back in the 1900s. The Mercedes 120 HP Rennwagen. And this one was more so for racing. This one I feel like you would see more so on the track rather than on the streets. I could be wrong though. I could be wrong. But that's kind of like affordable in foot-high air quotes, yeah. Where like it was still kind of a novelty for rich people at the time, but it was the start of the transition into it being a little bit more popular. So that's why I say like if we see any 1900s pictures, it's more likely that you're gonna see horses and dirt roads, and you wouldn't really but like, you know, there might still be like a car in the background, you know. Maintenance was a nightmare. 100%. Here we have the Cadillac Model M, Cadillac Model T, and then lastly is the Cadillac Model 30. So if we look at kind of like all these, you can start seeing that some of them have back seats. They're still kind of lifted off of the ground. And then once again, take a look at this. The fender is not a part of the overall shell of the vehicle yet. So yeah, and then like I said, we also have like the windshield over here as well as windshield wipers, and the roof, but albeit a convertible version of it. So yeah, that is a little bit about the cars of the 1900s. So once again, if you're looking out for these on Time Guesser, it's actually going to be kind of like rare, but you know, just in case you see it. So from here, we're actually at the last portion of the decade study. And it's my favorite portion because we're going to be talking about the art. So, and it's funny because we actually have to start pre-1900. So we still have, I want to say like another 30 to 45 minutes left. And then we're going to do Time Guesser. But this is my favorite part because there are so many things happening in the art world around the 1900s. So last we left off, fast forward to the 2010s, we're all the way up into kind of conceptual art, and kind of like questioning like what is considered art. Even into the 2020s, we're getting into that as well. But here, let's rewind because there were a lot of radical things that were happening in the art world during the 1900s. Did you ever see Alternate History Hub's video on the first car ever tripped across the US for a $50 bet? I did not. Feel free to tell me more. Because that sounds vaguely familiar, but I can't say I know too much about that. Also, let me get another sip of water real quick. Yeah, I probably should have warmed up my voice before stream. But I think part of it too is that like I'm kind of like projecting my voice. I feel like at this point, especially because it's getting a little later, I'll go ahead and soften my voice up a little bit. But let's talk about art. Would we need to share in the Discord? Oh yeah, what Bartawolf said. Yeah. Feel free to share it either in general or wherever you feel the need to. So yeah, before we get into the artistic movements of the time, which will include Cubism, popularized by Pablo Picasso, and Fauvism, popularized by Henri Matisse. Am I on the Discord? I feel like you are. I'm actually I feel like I've seen you on there. And then Expressionism. But Expressionism is so broad that I'm actually not going to be going over it that much, but let's start pre-1900s because we have to see what led up to this, essentially. Like, how did we go from more realistic figurative art that looks like this to Cubism, right? Ah, you found it. Yeah, like, I feel like I've seen you in the Discord, but yeah. So, yeah, pre-1900s. Let's talk about the late 1800s over here before we jump into Cubism and Fauvism. So one of the big things that happened in the late 1800s is the invention and popularization of photography. So photography would actually be created closer to the 1820s and 1830s. but it wouldn't become more popularized until later on. In fact, one of the fun facts that I wanted to share to kind of like illustrate this is the exposure time. So there's this idea that like a lot of cameras of this time, you had to sit for hours in order for it to get enough exposure to develop the picture. However, that was true in the beginning. Because it went from like, for example, like one of the first ones, it took like I think 5 to 6 hours for the film to develop. So you could only really take pictures of buildings, right? Because people are not going to be sitting for that long. However, it was able to be shortened to 7 to 10 minutes in 1938, and then 10 to 30 seconds in the 1940s. So wait, no, I did a typo. It's 1830s. Give me a second. I need to correct this. 1830s, 1840s. JK. Sorry, let me put all this back in its group. Group selection, there we go. Yeah, that was a typo. So, by 1838, it was down to 10 to 30 seconds, and then by the 1840s, it was, oh no, 10 to 30 seconds in the 1840s, and then near instant by the 1880s. They keep licking the paintbrush to wash it off so they get poisoned by the paints. Yeah, actually, like, I did hear about the radium girls. That's a crazy thing to think about. Videos in general? Cool. Thank you for linking that. So yeah, photography was already kind of like a full-blown thing by the 1880s, but this did lead to kind of like a crisis for artists at the time, because prior to this, the intent of a lot of art was to kind of like recreate the world as we saw it, right? So it led to this idea of like, well, how can we make art that can't be replicated by cameras? And that's essentially when people started to experiment, not with the subject matter, because we did see that a little bit earlier, but with the way that people made art. So this is where we see things like Impressionism, but I am getting a little bit ahead of myself. So around this time, around the same time that photography was becoming more popular, another thing was invented that I think is very underrated, and that is the paint tube. So nowadays, if you want to paint something, you get it in a tube. Like, if you watch, for example, Bob Ross, he will, like, show the paint coming out of the tube, and then he'll tell you, like, what colors you need. You'll need, like, phthalo blue and stuff like that. But back then, you actually had to make your own. Prior to the invention of the paint tube, you had to essentially make your own paint in your own studio. And because they didn't have the technology to make it so that the paint lasted once it was outside of the studio, it limited people to only painting in their studio. Like, you couldn't, like, for example, you needed to have the person, like, sitting in a chair in order to paint them. And if you wanted to paint a landscape, it had to be something that you could see out the window. So, with the invention of the paint tube, now painting could become portable. You could bring your entire canvas and your easel and your paints with you, and you could go outside and paint those scenes. Yeah, you gotta mix your pigments into paint. How can we make art that can't be replicated by camera? Me when I upload my art to Twitter as a GIF so they can't grok it? Yeah, exactly. So this would lead to kind of its own artistic revolution in terms of realism. So this was not necessarily a stylistic thing, because people were still painting in a way that kind of like recreated the world around them. Oh, Shinakari, you want to learn about realism? He has opinions. He prefers realism to that radical newfangled thing called Impressionism. So the techniques were still very similar to what came before, but what changed was the subject matter. Now, instead of painting idealized stories like biblical stories, mythical stories, or like idealized figures like the king and the queen and stuff like that, or like lords and royalty and stuff, people saw fit, or people saw more interesting and engaging, to paint the working class, working people, or just daily life. For example, we've seen this picture before, I believe, during one of our art appreciation sessions. But these are people that are... Oh, I hate rich people! So yeah, like, now that paint was portable, you could paint daily life. You could also paint landscapes and things that you see like in your daily life. So from there, we had realism, and realism would inspire another movement called Impressionism. So the notable artists for this would be ones like Monet, Manet, Renoir, and they would use broad and visible brushstrokes to capture how light moves. So this is a good example over here. Oh, Schnackery wants out. Give me a second. Okay. So getting back into the swing of things. So now we're looking at different subject matter in paintings, and that would inspire like different execution of paintings. So now I think this is cool because you kind of see the transition here. If you zoom out, it looks like a regular, it doesn't look too different from this, right? Which doesn't look too different from this. If you zoom in though, you'll see that like the details of each person is kind of like lovingly rendered. It looks very photorealistic. But then as you scroll down, you'll see that like the artists are starting to take more liberties with their brush strokes. They're not putting like, they're not blending their colors so that this looks like an actual person. But when you zoom out, when you see it from far away, it looks completely fine. It looks like an actual, like, it looks pretty comparable to this or to this. But now it kind of looked like they were being a little bit more liberal with their brush strokes, like I said, and they weren't caring about leaving it that way. In fact, when Impressionists were starting to become more popular and people were going to salons to see this work, the big critique was that it looked unfinished. It looked like you didn't blend your colors. You can still see the brush strokes, and that wasn't like, I don't know, the professional way to do things. But it also, like, this style would eventually become more popular because instead of trying to portray the world as we saw it, it portrayed the feeling of the world. It portrayed the way that light kind of plays upon like someone's face, right? Because you can kind of tell with like the way that light is portrayed that this is underneath a tree, and trees don't always like let light in uniformly, right? Like sometimes there's going to be spots where there's a little bit of light. There's going to be spots that are covered by leaves. There's going to be spots with a little bit of shadow. And that's what we get here. Like if you look at the floor over here, this is where like the branches are, but this is where the light is shining through. So that was kind of like the point of Impressionism, where like they were trying to reflect how light plays upon a subject. And the way that they tried doing this was with these visible brush strokes. So like, for example, if you zoom in here on the water, you can see the brush strokes. When you zoom out, it just looks like water reflecting the surface, which I think is really cool. Why don't you try it then, wise guy? Me probably when someone critiques my artwork in the early 1900s. Exactly. It's like, well, let's see you take a stab at it. This is actually one of my favorite Monets because once again, viewed from like far away, very beautiful already, and then when viewed up close, you see every single one of Monet's brush strokes. Even like the little ribbons in this woman's hat, right? It looks like he just used a single brush stroke to get it there, but it passes off the illusion that this is like a ribbon in the hat. I kind of like her expression too. It looks like it was made with just a few brush strokes. But like taking notes from when I play Magic Chameleon. Yes, exactly. But I don't know, it's such a like, there's something very poignant about this, right? It's almost like a precursor to surrealism where it almost feels like something from a dream. In my opinion. So yeah, you would see it a little bit more here. And this is probably one of my favorites of Monet as well, of just like, it almost looks like he looked at the scene and then like went straight to painting rather than like repeatedly kind of like looking up and down from the canvas to the subject to the canvas to the subject. It looked like he took a really small glance and then went to painting. Like, and the intent wasn't to capture the scene exactly, it was to catch the feeling of it, the impression of it, hence why it's called Impressionism. So yeah, you would see, and eventually you would get folks like Van Gogh and Cezanne, who would continue this idea but focus on abstract depictions of light and color. So here they were taking even more of a departure from, like, they weren't trying to portray the world as we saw it. They're trying to portray the feeling of it. And I think this is Seurat actually, but this is Van Gogh. I feel like Van Gogh is just kind of a household name, right? So this is actually the view that Van Gogh saw from essentially like where he was hospitalized, what people would call an asylum, right? Because of his mental illness. So this is the view that he saw. If you were to go to that hospital and you looked out the window, you might see like something that vaguely resembles this, but this is Van Gogh's unique take on it, right? You're not literally gonna see like, you know, brushstrokes around the moon and around the stars, but this is kind of like his take on it. The feeling that he had when he looked out the window. And that was kind of the response to cameras, to photography, of like, well, this is the art that cameras can't make. It's not necessarily capturing the location, it's capturing the feeling of that location. So this is post-impressionism, and then this is the artist that I was telling you about. His name is Odilon Redon. And I'm not super familiar with this guy's art, but when I decided to like watch a short video about his art, and it's a lot of his art is very horror centric. I think I kind of want to do a deep dive on this guy once it gets to October, once it gets to like spooky season, right? Because he's got some pretty creepy artwork. Positive. And then lastly, before we get into the 1900s artwork, one last thing that I should go into that is from before the 1900s is Art Nouveau. Oh my gosh, I realize I don't have any pictures of Art Nouveau. Oh no. Well, you know what? Let's look at the Wikipedia article. I was so invested in like Impressionism that I forgot to actually put any pictures of Art Nouveau, but let's talk about it a little bit. So around the same time, Art Nouveau was also getting really popular. So this is basically a design and art style that focused on organic lines and asymmetry and dynamic lines. And I'm going to show you what that means. Imagine Dada will be a headache in a couple decades. So we already went over Dada. So these decade studies, I actually started with the 1920s because I was like, oh, let's start 100 years ago. Not realizing that Time Guesser actually starts in the 1900s. So what we actually did was we went into the 1920s to the 30s, all the way over to the 40s and 50s and 60s and 70s and 80s and 90s, 2000s and 2010s. So this is actually a rewind back to the decades that we missed. And I will say I'm a fan of Dada. I actually love Dada. Especially because it did spawn one of my other favorite styles, which is surrealism. And Dada to me just makes sense. Like, it's not meant to make sense, but it makes sense in the context of it being a post-World War I art style, right? Or a post-World War I art movement, I'll say. So, yeah, I think, like, going into Dada, like, initially can be, like, very confusing and a bit of a headache, but I kind of like the idea behind it because it spawns a whole bunch of other art styles that are pretty cool, in my opinion. So yeah, Art Nouveau just basically focuses on like organic lines, wavy lines, asymmetrical lines. Dada was intentionally anti-art, that a society that can engage in such warfare doesn't deserve art. Exactly. The way that I read it is also closer to like, nothing in the world makes sense after the Great War, right? Like if we live in a society that allows that war to happen, then like what is the point of it all? Like what like if the world no longer makes sense, why should art make sense? And that, I think that is the idea that kind of appeals to me, of like, I get it. That's the same idea that spawns things like, you know, what is it, like deep fried memes of the 2010s. Like, the more you see like the ridiculousness of society, that is when you see more of the ridiculousness of art as kind of a outlet for that, right? That tracks, right? The society that created Dada art also created deep fried memes. That's my hot take. Which I actually say is a lukewarm take. Truth is stranger than fiction. Exactly. Exactly. There's something I thought of a while ago. Fiction has to make sense. Reality just is. I love that. I love that. 100%. So yeah, this is what Art Nouveau looks like. I feel like a lot of people confuse Art Nouveau and Art Deco. Just know that Art Nouveau has a lot of these curvy organic lines. And when I say organic, think of things from nature. So flowers, clouds, lily pads, deep fried memes mentioned, exactly. Hair is organic, you know? Think of like natural lines that you would see in nature, natural nature, right? Art Deco is going to be more geometric lines. This is perfect Art Nouveau over here. Oh, deep fried memes? I get to talk about deep fried memes. Yeah, let me show you, Barda Wolf. Anyone wants some bottom text? Deep fried memes were basically like this flavor of meme that you would see, especially during like the late 2010s, right? Where like at a certain point, it wasn't meant to make sense anymore. While it had origins in something that did initially make sense, you know, like this kind of like, like, you know, 2000s meme culture where you had your like impact font, top text, bottom text. Here, it's kind of like a subversion of that. Or like, this is kind of a perfect example of like, what if we kissed at the what? Like, at the what, bro? Like, you know, at the, like, where you're like heavily editing a photo, or it's become like, essentially like deep fried as in like, it almost looks like a Xerox of a Xerox of a Xerox. Like, it's meant to be absurd. It's meant to be like unknowable. It's meant to be confusing and baffling. Because essentially, like, this was the, like, it was kind of like the 2010s version of Dada art, in my opinion. Art Nouveau is elf art and Art Deco is dwarvish art. Exactly. At the Peck School. I just realized. Is ours 6-7? Yeah, essentially. Like, think of just memes in general. Memes in general, like, the context is very much anchored to the time period that it's in and the culture that it's in. So once you remove that context, like, essentially that's, you could argue that that's Dada, right? When you repost a JPEG enough times, the compression starts to make it look deep fried. Exactly. So yeah, if it's basically like nonsensical to the point of absurdity, that's Dada. That's Dada art. It became so iconic that it became an actual meme format. Exactly. So that's deep fried memes. That's the 2010s version of Dada. But going back to what Peck School said, yes, so Art Nouveau is like elf art, and Art Deco is like dwarven art. So I'll show you guys an example of that. So while Art Nouveau has these organic lines, Art Deco has more straight lines and geometric shapes. Things like this. Think of like The Great Gatsby, essentially. Deep fried illuminated manuscripts, exactly. Yeah, because we lost the context of the meme of like the knight on the snail, right? If something happens that even slightly convenient in a story, people will complain about realism, whereas in reality, drugs can fall from the sky and a bear can eat them. Exactly. Which is slander, by the way. I think that Cocaine Bear is innocent of eating all that cocaine. Makes me think of the art of the set. Wait. Makes me think of the art of the set New Capena from NTG, based off of Art Deco. Well, Cocaine Bear was. Yeah, no, I know what you mean. I was making a joke. I was making a joke of like, as a fellow bear, bears can do no wrong. They yeah. And I definitely know the story. Wait, really? The movie gave them a happy ending? I did not know about that. I knew that there was a movie. I just didn't know about that. I mean, I'd imagine that the happy ending is the freaking like the same happy ending that you see in like the Matchstick Girl story. Where the happy ending is that she died, you know? It's not the bear's fault they got it. Exactly. Well, yeah, like a bear is an animal, you know? Oh, the bear survives in the movie. Interesting. Okay, so yeah. So Art Nouveau, you see oh wow. This music. Wait, I want to listen to more ragtime. Let's listen to more ragtime. There we go. Okay. So yeah, these are examples of Art Nouveau. Oh wow, they just I guess these are the inspirations behind it. But yeah, you would see it a lot in design, you would see it a lot in art. And then another thing with Art Nouveau was that it was trying to kind of like break this idea of fine art being divorced or like different from applied art, which is something that you would see in things like furniture and appliances and stuff like that. Can you listen to the Fallout New Vegas radio? It's essentially ragtime. New Vegas? I thought that would be more so like 1920s and 30s, but I'm down. I'm down. Or actually, no, wouldn't it be more so like 50s? Because that was during the like atomic like panic, essentially. But you know what? Let's just put it on. Yeah, this might be slightly later in the timeline, but that's fine. That's fine. The happy ending is that the person moving into the bear's house perishes from their folly. Isn't that the era that we're in? I guess like more so. I want to say that this is well, we're going over the 1900s, and this music feels more like 30s, 40s, maybe even 50s. But you know what? It's fine. It's fine. Alright. So yeah, so we talked about Impressionism, Post-Impressionism, Art Nouveau. So all of that is actually pre-1900s, and that's kind of just setting the stage as to how this came about. So Cubism, Fauvism, and Expressionism. Yeah, it's old. Good enough. Exactly, exactly. So let's talk first about Cubism, because this was definitely inspired by some of the Impressionist works that we saw. But also, do you remember how at the very beginning of stream I was like, keep the idea of like colonialism and its influence in your back pocket because it's gonna come back? It came back. It's here. It's here. So Cubism, let's talk first about like what is Cubism, and then we'll talk about how it came about. So Cubism is a style that is marked by basically geometric shapes. So if you see something like this, where you see a lot of like kind of like basic geometric shapes like cubes and cones and like circles and stuff like that and squares, that is Cubism. But the way it kind of came about is that it was basically trying to abstract or make a figure abstract, as in like they're trying to take something that is familiar to us and make it unfamiliar by kind of simplifying it into simple shapes. So, and in contrast to Fauvism, Cubism also often has a limited palette. So if you look at like the color here, oh, let me pause. Nice. Beans made ramen and it looks so good. Okay. Yeah, so if you look at this picture over here, I believe this one is by Picasso. It has a pretty limited color palette. It's mostly gray, this like kind of like tan color, and green, right? And then when we talk about Fauvism, it's gonna be like an explosion of color. But let's stick first to Cubism. So there are a lot of origins of Cubism, but there are a couple that we can take note of. So, for example, there's an artist named Paul Cézanne. He painted this. And he wrote about the idea of seeing things in nature in terms of the cylinder, the sphere, and the cone. Put everything in perspective so that each side of an object of a plane recedes towards a central point. So he was basically talking about, like, if you take something like this, which looks figurative, this looks like a clown, question mark and a jester together, it still looks like a clown and a jester, right? But he is playing around a little bit with like the brush strokes. It kind of does resemble a little bit of like that impressionism that we saw earlier. But if you zoom out, take a look at the white figure. Take a look at this like clown figure over here, and he kind of makes a triangle, right? Like from the top of his hat to this shoe over here. It's triangular shape, right? It's triangle shaped. This one, not so much. This is kind of like a straight line, but with like his leg jutting out here. You could argue that it is also kind of a triangle. Like from like the heel of his foot to like the tip of his foot to the head over here. So two triangles essentially, but it still like overall still looks like people. But this was still pretty iconic because artists like Picasso would take inspiration from this and take it even further, of like not just turn the person into like a vague shape, but like really turn them into those shapes, like simplify the body so it's essentially just shapes. But I also included some other pictures over here because he had other influences as well. So Picasso was inspired by Cezanne as well as the Renaissance painter El Greco over here. In fact, if you take a look at these four ladies over here, you'll see that they actually are referenced in this painting, which is called the Young Women of Avignon. So it's not one-to-one, it's not exact, but it's kind of like if you squint, you can kind of see it, where like, you know, there's like ladies over here, they're in the nude, they're posing in a certain way, and then if you go back to the El Greco one, same thing. Couple of ladies, they're posing in the nude, etc., etc. So it's not one-to-one, but like you can kind of see the inspiration there. But also, like I said, this idea of like making things geometric, making things into simple shapes. Literal artistic nudity, exactly. But he was also inspired by Iberian sculptures. Basically, this is like pre-Roman sculptures over here. And if you see it, it looks like a rock sculpture, which by the way, these are really cool. So many styles when people in the future study the 2020, it'll be like this. Like AI or real art. I know that's kind of the crazy thing too, because like we do have like a lot to kind of like, there's a lot with like, even with the 2020s, like there's a lot of really cool art and art ideas that are happening, such as like installation art. So I think there is like a healthy amount of art to talk about, but unfortunately AI art is also kind of like in the conversation, so it does kind of like spoil that in a way. So, ooh, this feels a little bit louder. Oh, is there already fireworks happening? I just heard a boom. So, I mean, it is 2 days off from the 4th of July, so you guys might hear that a little bit more. You guys might even hear it tomorrow, too. So yeah, a big thing that Pablo Picasso was inspired by was African mass culture, including the Fang people of Equatorial Guinea, Gabon, and Cameroon, and the Dan people of Liberia and Cote d'Ivoire, and a lot more. I couldn't list them all here, but a lot more. People will take any excuse to fire off fireworks. Oh yeah, 100%. We may hear it all the way into October. Yup, big iron. Yeah, like I definitely live in a neighborhood where like you definitely hear fireworks for no reason. And sometimes it's like, I hope that's fireworks. But yeah, so like African mass culture was kind of a big inspiration to Picasso, and you can kind of see it here if you compare these two like different masks over here, which I believe this one is Fang and this one is Dan, and then compare it to how Picasso did the faces for these women. You kind of see the inspiration, kind of like these elongated, kind of abstracted features on the women. So he was definitely inspired by that. But where did these masks come from? How did Picasso have access to this? Well, he saw it in a museum, and the museum was able to acquire those objects because of colonialism. These were either the spoils of war, or these were just things that were taken from some of the like colonized lands within, like I said, Gabon, Cameroon, Equatorial Guinea, Liberia, Cote d'Ivoire, Mali, and many, many, many more. If it's not fireworks, someone is doing their duty and keeping the property values down. Exactly. While we're listening to the music, have you ever considered looking at the Bears of Gaming? I've not heard of that, actually. I've not heard. Tell me more. Feel free to tell me more, either here or in the Discord. But yeah, I've never heard of the Bears of Gaming. So yeah, you see that, and then a cool thing too with Picasso's history at this point is that this is a portrait of Gertrude Stein, the author, the American author that eventually migrated to Paris. And this was kind of like his first kind of foray into experimenting with this style, because it's still like more impressionist. It still looks a little bit closer to something like this than something like this. But this is when he was kind of experimenting with the style, because as you can see, like he's kind of playing around with like the size of the eyes over here, and the way that he shaded and like highlighted the face is kind of statuesque. Like, if you compare this face with, for example, like this face from an Iberian sculpture, he was drawing inspiration from that. Oh, bears in video games. Oh, like, wasn't there one in Far Cry called, like, Mr. Cheeseburger? Right? And then I know that there's the game Bear and Breakfast, right? Yeah, I don't know if I've ever done a deep dive on it, but that's a good idea. I do have like a couple examples of like bears in pop culture, like every bear that showed up in The Simpsons, for example. But I don't know how often I've investigated bears in video games. That's a good topic to go into. That'd be cool. And then we're gonna move into Georges Braque soon as well. But here's just a couple more examples of like how Picasso was kind of experimenting with cubism, because this is a woman basically. If you zoom out, you can kind of make out that it's like a woman, a nude woman. So this is her face, these are the arms, this is her chest. But he was definitely experimenting with just like, how can I turn like a organic thing, like a person, like a woman, and how can I abstract that? How can I make that even more abstract? How can I kind of like dial it down into basic shapes? So this is kind of like how he experimented with that. Another artist, Georges Braque, or Braque, he was inspired by Picasso and Cézanne's ideas, and he did much of the same. So he would, for example, like this is a good example of like the transition. This is a nude, right? This is a nude woman. But even now he's kind of experimenting with like breaking down this like blanket, breaking down like the hair into simple shapes. And eventually you see it with things like these landscapes, where like if you didn't know they were landscapes, they would just look like random shapes, right? But this is a tree. Over here is a house in the distance. But if you didn't know that, it might just be like, this is a square, this is a triangle, this is another square, there's another triangle. So yeah, this is kind of the experimentation that was happening during this time. And yeah, I'm just gonna read off this part because I do feel my voice starting to go, so I am gonna kind of like rush through the next couple parts. But there's a couple of subgenres as well. So there's analytical cubism, which just kind of like is this abstracting the subject into geometric shapes, as well as synthetic cubism, which adds like, you know, paper cutouts and different textures to it as well. So I'm just gonna go ahead and skip over into fauvism from here. But yeah, that's cubism. So if you ever see an artwork that uses a whole lot of geometric shapes like this, that is cubism. And then by contrast, actually before we get into this, I'm gonna get more water, and then I also want to take a sip of my ramen, so give me a second. That is good ramen. So I'm excited to eat that after stream. But let's talk about one of my favorite art styles. That's actually the energy boost I needed. Talk about one of my favorite art styles, which was actually pretty short-lived by comparison, by comparing like, you know, cubism and other things like expressionism. But the artworks, in my opinion, are just really cool to look at. So, Fauvism. This is another art style that came out of Impressionism and this whole like pre-1900s movement, but with a big focus on color. So color is the name of the game here. But it also featured this like rugged painterly brushwork. And there's this thing with like this idea of like, what is painterly? What does it mean when you describe something as painterly? I find it kind of funny because like I thought the same thing before I got into art history of like when someone says something is painterly, like painterly brushwork, what does that mean? Like isn't it painterly by the fact that it's in a painting? But basically, it means that you can see the brush strokes. So for example, like if we zoom into this picture, look over here on this like teal shape over here, you can literally see the brush strokes. You can see the spots where it's kind of imperfect, where you see that like the paint kind of like trailed off, right? So that's an example of like painterly. You can literally see the brush strokes. Same here with the hat. Like you can kind of see that he the artist Matisse, he took his brush over here and he did it in a zigzag. You can tell the motion from the stroke itself. I don't know if you can see my cursor actually. But yeah, he like did a zigzag motion here. He did like repeated like horizontal. Oh, my hand is waving. I don't know if you can see the cursor, but oh, you can. So yeah, you can kind of see the brush strokes here, as opposed to something like in realism, where like if you look at this, you can't quite tell like, you know, like obviously they use brush strokes to create these shapes, but they blended it really well so that it just looks like what it's supposed to look like. It looks like the arm of a person, or like the handkerchief, or like the grains and stuff like that. So this would not be considered painterly, despite the fact that it is a painting. Painterly just means that you can see the brush stroke. So you see that with like Impressionism, you see that with Cubism. For example, like right here, you can tell that like I believe this is Braque. He took his paintbrush and he did like this same movement. Diagonal, diagonal, diagonal. So this is painterly. And the name, like, why is it called Fauvism? It's because it originates from French, this idea of le fauves, the wild beast. And this actually started as a insult. So when Matisse and another artist, Andre Duran, when they showed off their artwork, it was next to like kind of like more classic looking artwork, and a art critic looked at it and was like, oh my gosh, this looks like or they were saying that like the classic artwork looks like Donatello among a bunch of wild beasts, the fauves. So instead of being insulted by that, the artists were like, you know what, let's call ourselves that. Let's call ourselves the wild beasts. So that's where the name Fauvism comes from. They kind of like took ownership of it. So yeah, like I said, notable artists include Henri Matisse and Andre Duran. Similar to Cubism, there was a lot of influence from Paul Cézanne, but also Paul Gauguin. So Gauguin himself is not usually considered a Fauvist, but his work is definitely like inspiring to that. So like this is actually based off of Gauguin's paintings in Tahiti, which was back then a French colony. But as you can see, he was definitely experimenting with color. So like this is a bunch of ladies at a pool, right? Or at kind of like a water spot, but he's playing around with the colors, right? Same here, he's using like very vibrant colors. And it might have not been realistic, but it's vibrant. Wild beasts rule. We're the wild beasts and we rule. Exactly. Exactly, Matthew. That's the kind of energy I want to have. Where it's like, you insult me by calling me a beast? Well, I am a beast. In fact, I'm going to name my art movement after that. So this is kind of like the seminal work by Henri Matisse, where it's like, it's a painting of a woman, right? You can even see her like wide-brimmed hat with like all the feathers and stuff. Beast moding, exactly. But he was taking liberties with the color. Like, she's not literally teal color. She's not literally Hatsune Miku color. But he was playing around with color. Same thing with this one is by Andre Doron. This was a bridge in France, or I think it's in France, or I think it's in London. But the water doesn't literally look like this, but they were taking liberties. Haters die mad, exactly. There's also some experimentation with like pointillism. And then this is another one by Henri Matisse. This pose in the center, you will see later on once we start talking about the 1910s. Because Henri Matisse would make another work with this pose. So yeah, just basically this whole movement can be dialed down to, or can be summarized as playing around with colors. And it's kind of why it's one of my favorites, because I love playing with colors and I think that's neat. So, all right. The last art movement that we have is Expressionism, and it's just too broad to really summarize. But basically, it's an art style that tries to evoke a specific mood, either with its colors or its brushstrokes or its technique. And it does overlap with Cubism and Fauvism, but it also includes artists like Kandinsky, Kirchner, and here are a couple examples of their works. But we also have over here, this is one of those artworks that isn't quite like always considered Expressionism, but it's an inspiration to the movement that would become Expressionism. But this is the Scream. Right? And once again, it's taking a departure from showing realistic like things that you would see in your world. Like if you see a guy screaming, he's not gonna quite look like this, and the sky's not gonna literally look like this, but this is trying to evoke a feeling of just like, actually I don't know what how would you describe this painting, right? Like despair, maybe like hopelessness, anger maybe, or like sadness. It's trying to have this mood, like the entire painting is just supposed to embody that feeling of like, I'm seeing it as despair or horror, maybe even horror, right? It's not supposed to be realistic. It's just supposed to make you feel things, which, like, isn't that just what art is? Madness, that's a great one, Barda Wolf. Madness. Especially with the colors used. So the same thing can be said of, like, all these other kind of disparate paintings, where, like, they're trying to just evoke a feeling rather than show something realistic. So, yeah. That is Expressionism. We're probably going to go more into it once we get into the 1910s. As you can see, this and the 2020s is kind of like the last blank spots in our big collage of decade studies. So we will be coming back to that in 2 weeks' time, which I'm excited for because we're going to finally complete our collage. I've seen this painting with Ghostface way too much to invoke actual feelings. That's funny. So yeah, this is the art of the 1900s. It's very inspired by what came before, but with a lot of experimentation. And for its time, it was seen very similarly to how people look at contemporary art nowadays. Where it's like, like people are experimenting with what is art, like, you know, like conceptual art, or art that is a location rather than like something on a canvas, you know? So, you know, it's interesting in that way. Don't think, though, that this gives any leeway to AI art. Because I still don't think that's art. But yeah. As you could probably tell, I'm losing my steam. So, and I'm burping. Do you think people in the 1920s were like, man, I miss the 1916s? Yeah. Yeah, probably. Probably. Especially because, like, yeah, when you go to the 1920s, and you see, like, you know, people were dressing up more like the flappers, right? Of course, there's definitely going to be adults being like, back in my day, we dressed with respect. We dressed to look like birds. Kids these days don't know about the birds. Which you can actually say in the 2020s as well. You could say that nowadays too. Kids these days, they don't know about birds because they're extinct. Because they're... because of climate change. Anyway, we gotta start wrapping up. I'm losing my voice. So, here's what we're gonna do. Time guesser. Time guesser. So let's see if our information so far, everything that we've learned about the 1900s, but also the 1920s through the 2010s, is gonna come in handy when we play time guesser. Birds went extinct because they were made by the government. Have you ever seen a baby bird? Or what was it, like a baby pigeon or whatever? Methinks not. But let's play time guesser, and then we'll call it. In fact, let me cancel raids. Make sure that no one raids in. But alright, let's see what we're looking at here. Movi Sono, we have Latin text. Viana, that sounds like it could be Italian. Ooh, okay, so we're seeing a big crowd. Not a lot of people are, there are some people wearing hats. The ladies are wearing hats, and their clothing kind of looks like these like suit dresses. Oh, we have an ad break already. I wonder if we... You know what? We'll let the ad play, because I want to drink some of my soup, but that'll be the last ad break of the evening. We'll continue with Time Guesser, and we're going to call it from there, alright? All these history lessons all amounts to Time Guesser. Exactly, exactly. My ultimate goal is to be great at Time Guesser. And because I love teaching, I love doing research, and I love teaching, but also to get good at Time Guesser, to get a good high score. So I'll put you guys over in the cup corner. I'm gonna eat some of my soup, and then we'll see you guys for Time Guesser in a couple minutes. And I can rest my voice a little bit. We're back. We're back. We're jamming out to ragtime. I'm full of soup. Beans made spicy shin green ramen, but he added a splash of oat milk to it, or soy milk? Some kind of milk, to make it creamy, and it worked. It's really good. And it also kind of dials down the spice, because it is pretty spicy. But it's good. Alright, let's finish up. So I did not touch Time Guesser at all during the ad break. So let's see what we're looking at. I feel like this might be 1940s because of the suit dresses. Basically, like during World War II, there was a lot of rationing. So women were kind of making dresses out of suits that their either significant other or brother or like or father had left over, right? So this feels like it could be 1940s. Ooh, La Tortuga, that is Spanish, right? Estomago? Abonos Organics? La Torre del something. So this looks like Spanish. It could be a Latin American country, but it could also be... Wait. There's some information here. Tira Kiko? Suro Exposicio? This looks like some kind of like art, right? This looks like some kind of like art, maybe like statue or installation. That's the guy Danny Trejo played in Breaking Bad. It's funny, I was just watching a video about Danny Trejo and all of his roles. And I didn't really, well, I did realize that he was in a lot of things, but like, I forgot. I forgot just how many things that he was in, and he's great. I haven't had any of the Trejo's tacos yet, but I'd be down for it, you know? Part of me wants to say, like, Europe, so maybe this is Spain, right? So maybe Madrid? But I don't know, it really could also be Latin America. But let's do Madrid, let's do 1940s. Let's say post-war, 1948. Yes. Ah, it was Spain, but it was Valencia. And it was 2 years off. So a crowd gathered around a giant satirical festival sculpture in Plaza de la Arena, Valencia, during the annual Fallas celebration, where such temporary monuments are displayed before being burned in the festival's traditional finale. This one highlights Spain's post-war housing shortage. Ah, so it's satirical. Pretty neat. Alright, next round. What are we looking at here? Skinny Dipper. No, Skimmy Dipper. Skimmy Dipper. It says Chicago here, so maybe the Chicago... Oh! Rubber ducks! Wait, when did that happen? I feel like there was a thing where, like, it was an art installation or something where someone just unloaded a whole bunch of rubber ducks into, like, a nearby... Like, was it the Great Lakes or something like that? Because Chicago is, like, bordering one of the Great Lakes. I want to say, was that 2000s or 2010s? Like, this feels kind of 2010s, right? Something about this feels kind of like 2010. So let's say like early 2010s. Let's say 2012, right? Met her on the way to Chicago. Volunteers recovering rubber ducks from the Chicago River following the 13th annual Ducky Derby in Chicago. About 60,000 rubber ducks were dropped in the river in the event, which sought to raise money for the Special Olympics Illinois. Ah, okay. We were 6 years off, so it was 2010s. But it was late 2010s. Okay, next up. Ooh! This looks pretty. Rubber ducky, you're the one. How did that song go again? I thought it was like, rubber ducky, I love you so much. Okay, so there's cars in the background here because the way that the colors are desaturated in this, I was like, oh, is this one of those 1900s like color photos that we were looking at earlier? But no, there are a lot of cars in the background, and in fact, as you can see, the fenders are part of the overall shell, so this is post 1940s, 1950s, maybe even 60s, I want to say. This feels kind of 60s-ish to me. Let's say 1965. But I'm not sure where we are. Like, I think it's just the architecture that we have to go off here. Oh, obviously this is 1697, right? Wait. We have some Latin text here. I can't read it. It's too small, unfortunately. So I'm not sure. Are there any signs? Oh wait, these are tulips. Hold on. I can't unfortunately read too much of the text, but if these are tulips, maybe this is a bit stereotypical, but Netherlands? Amsterdam? 1965 Amsterdam, mayhaps? Let's see. 9 years off. Ah, it's Belgium. So, like, not too far. Not too far, but a lady speaking with a flower vendor in Groot Markt, the central square in Brussels, Belgium during the mid-70s. So we were almost a decade off, but it's fine. It's fine. Alright, round 4. Kana Bros. This writing looks like South Asia, right? Like, I don't know if it's Sanskrit specifically or Punjabi, but this does look like South Asia. So India, Pakistan, Nepal. I might just want to guess India, but... Oh wait, this looks like, you know, it looks cut off, but maybe this has New Delhi, right? The only thing is time period. Let me find New Delhi. Yeah, here, New Delhi. So time period, let's see if we can figure anything out from like the fashion or the hairstyles. Longer hair, mustaches, so maybe this is post 70s. T-shirts, so definitely post 50s. Longer hair over here as well. This could be 80s, I want to say. Or even 90s, right? Let's say 85. Let's say 85 New Delhi. Nice! Nice! A year off, and it is... Oh, it's Old Delhi. Where's Old Delhi? Is it the same spot where New Delhi is? A street scene on Chandni Chowk, a historic main street of Old Delhi during the mid-80s. Oh, cool, cool, cool. Wait, is New Delhi right on top of Old Delhi? Is that... I actually don't know. Like, I know this is gonna make me sound dumb, but I actually don't know. Okay, last round. Ooh, wait, that flag. Brazil! Vai Brazil. But the thing is, Brazil's kind of a big country, so could it be the capital? Could it be Rio? Her name was Rio. There's also Sao Paulo. Any like hints that we can see? A New Delhi? Let me know if they serve gabagool. You know, I've been getting a lot of Sopranos memes on my Instagram feed lately. From like animations to like this one guy that does really good impressions. Christopher, look, it's a Dimetrodon. What the F is a dinosaur doing here, Tone? For the last time, it's not a dinosaur. It's a proto-mammal. How many times I gotta tell you, Christopher? That's a terrible accent, but I just think it's funny. The cars, could be 50s. Let's say Sao Paulo. Let's say 50s. Actually, if we look at the clothing too, yeah, like longer skirts, like these poodle skirts, right? So let's actually say later 50s, maybe 59. And then we'll say Sao Paulo because I just see the Brazilian flag. So, make a guess. It's Brasileiro. It's Brasilia, the capital. Crowds and honor guards gathered at Praça dos Três Poderes, the Three Powers Square, in front of the newly constructed National Congress Palace during the official inauguration of Brasilia as Brazil's new capital city. Ah, okay. Cool. So we didn't do too bad. I think we reached into the 40k. We reached over 40k points. Let's share results. I'll go ahead and share it in daily games, and I think we're gonna call it from here. If it's okay with you guys, I'm a little too tired to do mosh pit, so we're just gonna raid into someone. But thanks for tuning in. Like Warhammer, exactly. Thanks for the stream. Thanks for stopping by, everybody. Thanks for staying as long as you guys did. We're gonna go ahead and we can. It's not rigged. Is the thing. You see, it's the mosh pit is not rigged actually. But thanks for stopping by. We'll go ahead and raid into someone. Let's see who we got. I'll drive you guys home, and I'm gonna eat my soup. Oh yeah, as a reminder, tomorrow we will not be streaming on Twitch. Instead, we're going to be over at the Discord. We're going to be watching Digimon Adventure 02. This is a sequel to Digimon Adventure 1999. We're going to be starting the first 5 episodes tomorrow, so if you've never seen it before, feel free to stop by. If you have seen it before, feel free to stop by. And everything in between. So, at Soup! We're going to be watching it at Soup. So if you want to drop by for that and you are not part of the Discord, here is where the Discord is. But yeah, same time, 6:30 p.m. PST, we're going to be watching Digimon in the Discord. Good evening, George! Thanks for the stream, thanks for stopping by. Who do we raid into? Quite a few people on right now. Let's see, there's Folk, there's Almantas, there's River, Shindigs. I'm thinking... let's see. There is Shindigs. Yeah, there is Shindigs. Have you... I have raided him before. And that would also be a good one if I wanted to raid and run, right? So we could do that. We could do that. So let's go ahead and raid into Shindigs. I'll see you guys tomorrow. And I hope you guys have a good morning, afternoon, and evening. And as always, I'll see you guys when I see you guys. And the raid message is working. Wow. Miracles really do happen. But alright, I'll see you guys tomorrow. Thanks for stopping by. I appreciate you. And we raid. Bye-bye.